Does buttons come up? Happy Friday. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. It's great to see you. He does want to come up. Oh, Joe, Jesus, Mom, please bring me. Please, Buttons. Where do I look? Right there, Buttons. Right there, Buttons. Oh, oh, happy Friday. Happy Friday. I'm being a pain, just like everybody else in this house. Oh, I'm being a pain today. Happy Friday. Let me see if I can stop making that voice. It's very hard to stop once I get started. But it is, it is good to hear a voice because it is a phenomenon in this house that when one speaks to someone, I suppose an answer comes, but it's not audible. It's kind of like at a volume for maybe dolphins, and then I don't hear the answer, and then I have to ask again, and then it's like, I'm not listening. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. It was time for me to come downstairs. I'm actually in the basement right now. This is one of my winter perches, one of my studio spaces in the winter. I'm still upstairs a little bit. Sometimes I'm at my new special desk, but sometimes I'm down here. I had to put a couple rugs behind me for tonight because I just couldn't figure out where I wanted to be and where I wanted things to be and what I wanted to hang and how I was going to do it. And Buttons is licking my fingers. It's just what I need, right? My fingers being licked while I'm trying to concentrate. Oh, but he's so cute. He's so irresistible. So we are downstairs, and I'm going to set up another space. I was thinking about setting up one of those, those fake fireplace things that actually throw up heat. They I guess in one way they are sort of like they're not a proper fireplace, but they look like a hearth, and they have heat in them. I don't mean the gas ones like I used to have at the studio years ago, but like one that looks real. I thought maybe that would look cool. It would give me another mantle. In the winter, it could be really cozy. They get really good reviews. I wonder if anybody has one of those. I wish you could see him right now. It is so pathetic. He's just rolled over on his back with his tongue sticking out, wanting some scratchies. Um, anyway, it's great to see you. It's great to be here. We've got a great show for tonight. Not sure I've got the lighting right or anything else, but I'm warm. I'm warm, and I'm starting to snuggle in and figure out where we're going to be together for weekday shows and weekend shows. And it's a bit of a work in progress. Good to see you, Cheryl. Happy Friday night on Cape Cod. Oh, I was so disappointed yesterday because I so wanted to shoot to the Cape. There was an event happening at the Cahoon Museum. I'd got the feed for it the day before. I needed a little bit sooner than the day before with stuff like this because it's like, 3.5 hours of driving each way. But it was some kind of a new book release, um, the Wharf family, WHORF. If that sounds familiar, it's because I've talked about Nancy Wharf. I'm assuming it's the same family. She was and maybe still is a 20th century artist who used to work with Peter Hunt, who we often talk about on the show for his great design style. This is so sad. Buttons is just being full blast desperate right now. Um, anyway, I'm probably going to get that book and maybe we'll look at it together. It's not a rug cooking book, it's an art book. It's a decorative art book. But it looked like such a great event. Cheryl, I was really thinking about whether it would work. Um, but it turned out to be such a nightmare day yesterday with not a nightmare, but I am heading up the holiday festival at my church. And why would I say I was going to do that? I don't know. I just thought maybe it will be so nostalgic like the old days. And it is. I have to say, it is. It is. Everyone said, don't do it. It's going to be so much work. It's going to be so frustrating. It is. But it's also so much fun. And it does feel nostalgic. And I haven't thought this much about the Christmas holiday, planning and having a party and planning music and, putting things in order. I haven't done this much planning for a holiday for like years and years and years. So it is kind of nice in a weird way, but it is taking up a lot of my time. I'm more worried because right before the show, I was cutting up wool to dye, and it was my last bit of wool. And I still have not heard from Door that they have sent anything new. It's getting really crazy. I think I might. I think I might make a change, and I'll tell you if I do. I already made a change for the linen. I'm excited to start using it. It looks beautiful. Um, I would bring it to you, but it is enormous and it weighs more than I do, the roll of it. But if you start ordering patterns, or if you have ordered patterns, it's going to come on that new linen. And I think it is really, really, really like the for me the ultimate, because it's got all of the properties of a primitive burlap, like a Scottish burlap, but it is a nice stiff linen that is not hairy. It's not floppy. At least it's my style of linen. They're not going to do the white bleached anymore. This one is coming from a different place, so I'm going to use it a little bit more before I share all of those details. But I might be making changes all around because I just need for supplies to come. I don't have the time or the bandwidth to monkey around with supplies. If it's, doesn't cost any less because it takes months to arrive. Anyway, Karen, cheers, my dears, on a cold day. This looks fancy, but it's only water. I'm saving my calories. Um, Maybe that's stupid. Well, my friend Sherry's coming over tomorrow with her husband Lenny, who incredibly I've never met. I've known Sherry for years, decades, and then we lost touch when I moved abroad for years, and then we've been back in touch for the last year. We see each other all the time, but we're always like up to no good when we see each other. We're always meeting at a pub or somewhere or going shopping somewhere, and it's always the guys don't come, right? They're not wanted. So tomorrow will be the first time I meet her husband. So I'm sure I'm going to have some drinks tomorrow. I'm going to save my calories for that. But I'm going to say cheers, my dears, to everybody out there, because it is Friday night after all, right? Karen, it is cold there in Black Forest, Colorado. Some wild, some weird white stuff falling from the sky on and off. Is it? Oh, already. Oh, how pretty, though. Goretti, great to see you. Hello in Ontario. You had a good weather day there today. We did too. It's been very surprisingly cold. Like it's freezing. It's less than freezing in the morning, and it warms up a little bit during the day, but it is cold. This is the first year, at least here in New England, I can say in many years, it was a proper summer. It was a proper fall. The colors came very, very late, and I think we're in for a proper winter. I think we're going to get like the full blast experience with all of the seasons this year, which is exciting, right? Cold and exciting. New Moon, great to see you. Although it's coffee and stitching for you on this rainy evening. That sounds great. Oh, that sounds great. I wish I would have thought to make a coffee. That's just what I feel like having right now. Linda B., great to see you in New Jersey. Enjoy that fluffy white stuff, Karen. Cheers, my dears, to you too. Um, another buddy, Sir Sin Solari. Great to see you. Welcome. Happy Friday night. Kaz, happy Friday night. I haven't seen you live for a while in Wisconsin. Great to see you. Gail, you're logging on in Australia. Good morning, my love. Happy weekend to you. And Myra, cheers, my dears, in Winchester, Virginia. Great to see you. Happy Friday night. Um, ow. Where's my cheat sheet of code names? Oh man, you're one of the buddies that has a code name that I always have to think about who it is, because it doesn't have a clue in it. Great to see you. Good evening. Just eating McDonald's French fries for dinner. Oh dear. I have to say they are delicious. When you're feeling it, nothing can replace that kind of naughty food, right? I know. I won't say anything bad about McDonald's, because when it's in my mouth, I'm really enjoying it. I admit it. Joy, great to see you. Happy Friday to you too. Patricia, great to see you in Binghamton, New York. Thank you so much for sending the slides that we will see in tonight's show. And if you are there and you can shout out and you remember who some of the makers are, that would be amazing. Anything extra that you can provide while we're live would be fantastic. I'm so happy to see you. Mom, there you are. Almost fell asleep and missed you. I'm not surprised. We had a busy day. So glad I snapped awake to be here. We had a very funny day today. I got to show you a funny photo. I meant to put it into the show tonight and I forgot. We were at the church today because I host my Friday group as well. And during these Fridays, we're working on stuff for the festival because it's a good use of time. And so today, the guy who's the sort of handyman, the better word than that, he's fantastic, Kevin, he was putting the sort of frame on one of those peek through faces that we're going to have at the festival for kids to put their faces through. So here he is outside on the landing and he's about to cut the faces out of the photo ops. And of course, as soon as he did, since my mother and I are a couple of infants, we had to, I hope you can see this, we had to put our faces through. I'm Rudolph, and my mom is Santa. It was at an angle. I was way down on the ground to be Rudolph. I was sitting like crisscross applesauce on the ground. It was really fun. We have a few of those that are popping out, but it's nice to see things coming together, you know. Incidentally, December 6th, if anyone's around here, I could desperately use help in the festive fiber room, running workshops that day. I could definitely use some help. Janet, great to see you. Happy Friday. Is it still like summer in St. Augustine, Florida? You're hoping for more sweater weather. Well, you know what? Sooner or later it's going to come, so enjoy that beautiful weather now. As soon as the cold comes, it feels for 5 seconds like so charming, you know, like ski weather, and then almost immediately I'm like, oh Jesus, where'd I put my coat? Not that coat. Where's my other coat? And then I think, oh, I just wish it was the time when I didn't have to go out with a coat. I get so burnt out, and zipping up and walking the dog and checking the mail and all of this stuff in a coat. It's a first world problem for sure, right? But yeah, things change so fast. Sharon, great to see you. It's very cold there. Oh, I bet. New Moon says, oh, it's Judy. Judy, great to see you. Not sure why YouTube changed your hand. That's the word, handle. Doing something fun and sneaky. Who knows, right? Diane, great to see you. Cheers, my dears, from the east coast of Canada. I bet it's chilly up there, right? You're already probably well into the winter. Oh, dear Becky, of course that's you. I need my little chalkboard here with all my shortcuts for the handles. Great to see you. Kes says going to the chiropractors on Mondays and Wednesdays. Oh, okay. I hope that you're feeling good and that's helping out. Yeah, that's probably a great thing to do. Been looking for stuff lately, figuring out what the new doctors are and what the new dentist is and all that stuff. I went to an appointment this week to learn more about the weight loss medicine that everyone is on. And unfortunately, this particular one wasn't for me. I know a lot of friends who are on the weight loss medicine right now, particularly who are my age and around my age and hitting that wall in your 50s, 60s, where losing weight, you know, even though you're doing as much exercise and making as many good decisions as you can while maintaining a happy quality of life, weight is still a huge problem. So, yeah, I've been trying to figure out what to do about that. And I learned when I went to one of them this week that there was only one, they only had one of the medicines, and it was called Slim Shot. And apparently it's the only one that is approved by the Food and Drug Association, which is good. At the same time, it was about 8 times more than I've ever heard of any of them being in there. None of them are cheap, but this one was extraordinary. So I thought, no, not for me. If anybody knows anything about this and you want to send me a PM, that would be helpful. I made another appointment for tomorrow morning to talk to somebody else, because one of the big things that comes up in these conversations about weight loss, you know, now that I'm trying to do this for real, is the idea of food noise. And I have to say, although I am a pig and I love to eat gross food, and it's a great guilty pleasure eating garbage food. It's one of my favorite hobbies. It is something that I don't have to do. I do it when I feel like it and when I just don't care. But it's not one of my big problems. And I think a lot of these medicines deal mostly with food noise and that constant desire to be eating, constantly thinking about food. I could miss meals, right? Doesn't mean that I won't go to McDonald's in the evening, right? Because it's convenient, and it's more I get to these points where I just don't care. I just don't care. I get the pendulum swings, you know, this is partly being like a person that has depression, and I'm in a super good mood, and I think everything's great. I look great. I'm going to diet. I'm going to exercise every day. And then the pendulum swings very quickly, and I'm like, who gives a whatever? I'm happy. I'm gonna be fat and sassy, and I'm gonna go to McDonald's, and you know, it pendulum just keeps swinging. It's more of a mental thing with me. So if anybody's doing any of those and you're having a great experience, please let me know. I'm looking for information. Every time you go to one of these doctors, you have to pay them. Cross my palm with silver just to find out more. there's so much to know too. So what a nightmare. What a nightmare. Um, and you know, if I had more time, I would just exercise a lot more. But at the end of the day, I'm at an age where I can be honest with myself and say, I can't exercise. I can exercise, you know, half an hour reliably a day, maybe sometimes an hour. But I ain't going to exercise for 2 hours a day. And I'm going to miss days because I'm busy, right? So it's not the way it used to be when, you know, I was waitressing or whatever, and I go to the gym for a couple hours. Those days are over. So it's just funny how things change. But yeah, it's hard to get a handle on some of this stuff, and it's kind of depressing. Anyway, let's move away from that subject and return to the subject we've been talking about this week, because tonight we're going to be looking at some slides from two beautiful fiber art events that we've been lucky enough to kind of horn in on, because both Danielle and Patricia sent us beautiful photos that we can look at tonight. Now, I had Patricia's in the show last, what was it? Friday, right? And I thought we would get to them because we didn't have that many slides in the show. But if you remember last cocktail night, everything that we looked at was mysterious and puzzling and put us down a conversational rabbit hole. And we moved slow because we were trying to figure stuff out, actively figure stuff out as we're going along. And we were pooling our knowledge, as we often do, and saying, I think that that stitch is that. No, I think it's that. It must be that. It can't be that. And it was interesting and exciting because it kicked up a lot of techniques and language that I didn't know. And if you remember, if you were able to watch Monday's show, I did what I said I was going to do. And I was working on this sort of sampler thing. Hold on, let me just put this all somewhere safe. I was working on this kind of sampler thing. And, you know, I ended up obviously not doing the tree, right? There's like a giant, like lima bean or something going through the tree. It's not the tree in the end, but we were doing different techniques using only a rug hook so far. And we were coming up with some nice surface fills that were really solid, quite fast, trying some things, saying, yeah, no, that's not going to work, or that's not going to work with rug hooking. So that was a fun show on Monday. It went way over, as you can imagine, because I was trying some stuff out. So I promised on Monday that I would, because I was showing you how to do this stitch that we were trying to emulate from some of the photos that Danielle showed us of the, hold on a second, let me come over here and let me say the right name. I know you've got a blank screen. Zumbro River Fiber Arts Guild. Let's conclude this conversation before we move on to Patricia's beautiful slides. Danielle had a few more for us because she went back to the Zumbro River Fiber Arts Guild, I think on Sunday, and she said that there was a lot of the same pieces there, but they had swapped out a lot of pieces too. So, and she was in, it was one of the M's. It was Missouri, right? It was Missouri. I thought I said Minnesota, and I think she corrected me and said Missouri. Oh, Ruth, great to see you. Happy Friday to you and Richard. And she said there was different stuff. So that signaled that that particular guild, it just does like a constant sort of, what am I trying to say, revolving display of artwork. And there were some different fiber things to see. So I'll show you some of those to conclude that conversation. But what I said I would do on Monday was show you how to do this stitch that we referred to as the chain stitch in crochet language, the Tunisian crochet. It's a specific stitch that looks like a V. We managed to do it in rug hooking in what I would call in rug hooking the chain, still the chain stitch, but we were able to do it just with the hook, no needle. So I said that I would show you what this stitch looks like with a needle, just in case you're curious, because it doesn't work the same way as the Monday technique with the rug hook, right? It's not the same thing because this time I'm threaded up with a needle. There's just going to be this one demonstration tonight. Let me see if I can bring you here. I've got the edge of the thing right there. I've got quite a thing going on, so hopefully you can see me sort of okay. I know it's not super close. Let me see if I can come a little bit closer without a tragedy. If everything goes black, I probably won't have the stamina to log back on, so let's hope for the best. I'm all crooked and crazy here, but let's see if we got this. You know, I'm going to do one more daring thing. Hold on. All right, let's try this. And I'm going to come. Okay, no, it's okay. It's all good. It's all good. just leaning up against it with my balcony. So I'm just threaded up. This is just a piece of 3-ply Briggs and Little yarn. I'm threaded up here. It's through a needle. It's quite a big embroidery needle. It does not have a sharp tip. It's a little bit of a sharp tip, but it doesn't need to have a sharp tip because this is my rug hooking linen, right? This is my rug hooking linen. So it doesn't need to be sharp, right? This is the material that we know well. I already have been rug hooking into it, making these stitches. You can rug hook straight into it because it's rug hooking backing, Minnesota. Oh my God, Danny, what is wrong with me? Like, what is wrong with me? Too many M's, right? Um, so I'm just gonna, because this is a needlecraft, right? And this is not a rug hook thing, not tonight. I'm showing you the same technique in needlecraft. I'm going to make a knot, just a simple knot, right? Because I want to hold it underneath. Now, doing this technique, I've got my eye on my thing upside down, and I've got my eye on you. Isn't that a song? Isn't that a George Harrison song? I'm going to come over here. I'm going to come over here because you're more in the middle, aren't you? Let's see if we can do this. I'm going to do one more bold move and see if I can get, yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is, now be patient because you see the needle over here? Right, it's right up near this yellow thing. I come up and I go kind of diagonal. So I go, instead of coming straight down, and this is your choice, instead of coming straight down, bear with me because I'm looking at the monitor, along the line I go a little bit to the right. Surface crochet. Ooh, I haven't heard that, but that does make a lot of sense. And then I'm going to come up in the middle of my line. You see where I am? In the middle of my line. Wait a minute. Oh my God, everything is reversed on the monitor. Here we go. And I'm going to come up like a daisy stitch here, right? And it's going to lie right down like that. And then I'm going to go off to the side again. Why off to the side? Well, I don't want it to be like on top of each other. So I just go off to the side a little bit, right? And come down. And then I'm going to come back up right on my line, a little bit further ahead. And I'm going to catch that loop, right? I went a little bit too far that time. And you're literally just catching it before it disappears down the abyss and dragging it along, right? So you're just putting a stitch in and experiment with directions and stuff like that in distances, and then you're coming up under the loop and dragging it along. And it is going to make the same sort of chain effect. And mine is a little bit wonky, but again, I'm completely upside. If you could see what I'm doing right now, you'd think I belong in the circus. It's going to make a chain effect, same as this, and this is very thin yarn as well. So just making the point, I'm going to stick this in here, just making the point that whether you are using, black sweatpants, right? Nice touch. Whether you are using your rug hook or a needle, you can make the same stitch, and probably same with crochet hook and lots of other things. So, so many ways to achieve a specific look. It just becomes a question of what is the correct language, what's easiest for me, what kind of backing am I working on. But it has been fun with this segment, Danny. I was thinking this from, okay, yep, I caught that one. Danny showing us these photos has really brought that to light, that now I'm second guessing things that I do, like filling backgrounds, and thinking, what I did on Monday was a lot faster and easier than a lot of the things that I do, and I'm often in a hurry, and I like to give my wrists a break from hooking, always doing the exact same motion. It does make me think about all of the sister things that are out there that I could also put into my linen backing or my monk's cloth backing, right? Any of the rug hooking backings that we use are going to work with needle crafts too. It's worth thinking about, right? So let's look at some of the other slides. Danny, you sent, because you went back, I think, with your husband and your friend, and you found some more cool stuff that I think we hadn't seen yet. This is one of those things. I'm just going to stretch this a little bit. Sorry for the movement. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. This is needle felting, and we saw some needle felting last week, but I don't think we saw this piece. And I liked this piece for so many reasons, right? This is straight up needle felting, right? So you're using like roving, you're putting in highlights. This is two-dimensional, obviously. And one of the nice things about needle felting you can also do in rug hooking backing, right? You can also needle felt into wool. So like a sweater or your own wool from your stash. Needle felting is very practical, and it's something that we can incorporate into rug hooking very easily. Whether you're including it in a rug hooked piece or you're doing needle felting alone, like this piece, this is needle felting and beadwork. Can you see all those beads shining? It's such a great craft. It's a little bit flatter. It's a little bit more two-dimensional than rug hooking. It's a very nice craft to be able to put into a traditional frame. Now, we can as rug hookers as well, but when you put a needle felted piece into a frame like this, like an existing frame, whether it's from the frame shop or it's from TJ Maxx or whatever, it looks so pretty. And for a minute, it looks like a watercolor, doesn't it? Just the nature of this craft, the softness, the shadows, the way that the material pulls, it has a very tactile, very loose sketchbook quality to it. Whereas rug hooking, we are making loops, we're making a textured pattern, something with a pile, and often has a strong directional pull to it. Needle felting is very different. And it's really easy in looking at a piece like this to look and think, I can see perfectly why people like to incorporate needle felting in their rug hooked pieces. Now, this is a very different piece. This is one view of it. I'm going to show you the second view of it because I think this is easier to see. They're both important views. This is three-dimensional needle felting. For me, this is a bit of a departure. This is, of course, going to be less useful for you as a rug hooker because it is three-dimensional. But you can see how far this craft can go looking down on this little mushroom that has been probably glued. This needle felting sort of vignette has been glued onto a tree stump. If you remember from the slides we looked at last week from the Zumbro River Fiber Arts Guild, there was at least one artist who was using wood, like this is like a cross section of a tree, right? But we were also seeing like sort of planks of wood, planed kind of wood. I don't know what the right term is, but slices, like slices of wood, like you were cutting the cheese, and people mounting finished pieces, mini punch, needle felted stuff onto wood, which makes it, when you look at something like this is a little bit more three-dimensional, but it's like, does the wood become the frame? Right? Not really, but it's funny because we frame things with wood, and many fiber arts are, oh, good to see you. You just got the notification. Oh, it came a little bit late, but hey, we have just started. I was talking nonsense until 2 seconds ago. It's funny to think about using something like wood, which is, of course, a natural product, right? It's something like, from nature, just like wool is from sheep, right? These natural things next to each other are a very good fit. It's interesting to think about putting stuff together like this. And three-dimensional needle felting for me is kind of like a black hole because I can't explain why it doesn't appeal to me, but it doesn't appeal to me. And I think and there's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't appeal to me. Two-dimensional needle felting appeals to me much more. And of course, different strokes for different folks, right? And I love seeing all of it. But I haven't done enough three-dimensional needle felting. It's not like it's been an utter failure. I love two-dimensional pieces so much that when I can't find a way to incorporate it, I kind of move on. This is another flat piece that is in a frame kind of a situation, but this is an interesting piece to look at for a few reasons, right? So this is a needle felted piece using wool, just like us, but on what looks like a piece of felt, like a piece of wet felt, like something has been wet felted and then either continuing to wet felt or having a piece of wet felt, which is like irregular and stretched and has these funky borders, almost looks like an ancient piece of papyrus or something, right? Like this old kind of scroll. It's got uneven edges, and that in itself is one of the kind of prestige points of this form. You love the nonsense. It was a bender. But you know, what I love about these pieces, and this is something that we don't do in rug hooking, is you see that border. And for me, it draws me in because when I see a border that's this irregular with needle felting, with wet felting, it always, even though it's a very figural piece, and I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, well, obviously this is a lighthouse. I can see all of the light hitting the rocks. I can see the movement in the water. It's a little bit turbulent, but it's mostly pretty blue water. It looks like a nice weather day. It doesn't look like a threatening day, right? It doesn't look like a hurricane is coming in. Beginning of a pirate map. Karen, that's it. That is the very thing. There is something mysterious about looking at a piece that has like an uneven or cut off border. It looks exactly like it's been ripped from something else, or that you're seeing only part of the story. And for me, it brings a sort of mystery that it has so much charm. And again, this isn't something that we do with rug hooking. We, work on woven backings. But if you think about it, you could, for those of you who hate borders and finishing in rug hooking, think about the idea of, say that you got into wet felting and you wet felted a piece of wool, right? You already have wool. You're wet felting wool. Maybe you've got roving and maybe yarns. Maybe you're even felting in like yarns and confetti and stuff like that. Let's say you made a piece of whatever size and you cut a hole in the center, and that piece of wet felt becomes the mat, right? Like the frame store mat, and your piece of rug hooking goes in the middle. So it's fiber within fiber. It's a Russian nesting doll of fiber, but that would be the only way that you could get your piece into this kind of a border, and I think it would work like a charm. I think it would be so cool. You could even do a little bit of sewing through the wet felt, right, onto the rug hooking backing. I mean, it could be a little bit of the, what's it called, sashimo. Kaz, what's that stuff called? That Japanese stitching that has a little even stitches. I think we're going to see some of it in one of the upcoming slides. But there's so many ways that you can combine this technique. Besides this being a beautiful image, there's so many ways to combine that with rug hooking. Another interesting thing about felting, and works the same with rug hooking as well. I'm going to move a little bit, so don't fall off your seat. Sashiko, thank you. We're going to see an example of that. Another thing about the wet felting, and again, you can incorporate, this is something that you can incorporate, apples to apples with rug hooking. The way that it pops into a little embroidery frame like this is always just, it's easy and it always looks fantastic. Sometimes it's hard to get rug hooking because of the nature of the loops in a tidy manner into a frame. You can tell by the way that these frames close, right? The hardware on these frames, these are not the big expensive frames, right? These are not the big quilting frames. These are little frames that are inexpensive from your local craft store. These are the inexpensive ones. And to think of these, essentially when you buy them in bulk, are like $1 each, like really. To think about being able to do a beautiful textile piece like this, lock it into a little frame like this, have it look so tidy, like a little jewel, right? Different sizes to finish it up so quickly and so inexpensively, something worth thinking about. We do see rug hooking in these frames. Rug hooking is just a little bit bulkier than needle felting, so it's not as much of a natural fit. It can be done, but with your rug hooking backing, depending on what backing you're using, right? And if you are rug hooking and expecting or planning to put your piece into one of these very small, very narrow, right, very basic embroidery frames, then I think you want to think about using something really thin like monk's cloth, because even though it frays like hell, it's going to be easier and thinner to get into a frame and to hide your backing. So it's something to think about. The back of these probably looks like a hot mess too, right? It's probably all folded in like origami, maybe glued, maybe stitched so that it doesn't misbehave, but it can be done. You just want to think about using, even if it's not your favorite backing fabric, using the thinnest fabric that you can find so that finishing it is not an utter nightmare. Karen says great ornaments. absolutely great ornaments, great gift, finished piece, right? Finished as quickly as this. So this is needle felting. I'm going to move you over here. I think we might have looked at this one last week. Another really pretty piece. Simple fix. It's a felted piece. You know, when you're doing needle felting, wet felting, maybe in combo with just straight up needle felting, right? You will get that unfinished edge, but you can cut it and trim it so that it's tidier. And in this case, there has been a sleeve sewn on in a lighter weight fabric, maybe a thinner felt or maybe a quilt fabric, but a very easy way to hang. This is something that we can do as rug hookers too. You can sew on felt or wool, more of the same wool you're using. Just stitch it on, right? Neat little stitches with a needle and thread, and just make a little sleeve. Tuck everything else behind, right? No one needs to see. No one's going to flip it over, right? You chop off their hands if they do. Just stitch it all behind and put a little dowel like this through it, and Bob's your uncle right there. Or a stick from outside, anything that works. This is another piece that's in the same fiber show, right? So this is still the Zumbro River Fiber Arts Guild. This is a quilted piece. And this is an interesting quilted piece because we have spent a lot of time talking about quilting designs. I'm looking to see if there's any I recognize. I think on the far left, 2 down, the one that's brown and white, that to me looks like a combo block of pinwheel and flying geese. So we spent a lot of time, not that long ago, I think it was this year, looking at quilt blocks and being inspired by the old-fashioned names of the quilt blocks and the history of blocks, right? They're very regional, the names of the blocks and the way that the compositions look. We spent a lot of time talking about them because we often see quilt motifs in rug hooking. So it's nice to know what you're looking at. It's nice to know that you can pull from a craft like quilting that has a much larger base of makers, right? Rug hookers to quilters are about 24 or 25 to 1 rug hooker. So there are far more quilters out there. It's interesting to look at their work and to be able to say, oh, I'm inspired by it, and I can bring some of these ideas into my rug hooked pieces. We do see rug hooked pieces that break down like this. We talk about checkerboards all the time, right? And typically checkerboards come in the form of 19th century, early 20th century geometrics. And with a checkerboard, we're always, well, with rug hookers, we are typically looking for symmetry, right? Not always, but it's usually like one block has a flower, the next one is just lines, like little steps or whatever, log cabin, and then they alternate. But quilters are much more in the habit of making like a Baltimore quilt configuration, which means every block is different. It's not supposed to be matchy-matchy. It's not supposed to be symmetrical. It sometimes can tell a story when you have different blocks that show different things, can tell a story like maybe this is a guild piece and maybe each person made their own special block and then they were put together at the last moment. Maybe these blocks represent something for the maker, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months, maybe one per month of the year. We don't know the backstory, but it is interesting to think about designing or working within this kind of an open framework and saying to yourself, well, this month it's planets. We're going to do planets, but you know what? Next month, I'm in the top middle. It's going to be sort of a deco flower. Love it. The next month, I went all new agey, went like a little bit off the rocker, and I started doing these like, more sort of planetary starburst stuff. Then I got really old school, and I got into the flying geese again. We're allowed to change and do these kinds of sampler projects like other crafts do. We don't really have this in rug hooking. We don't really have something where it's like, let's make a calendar quilt, right? We don't really do that as rug hookers. And why don't we do it as rug hookers? There's no reason, right? If this appeals to you, this kind of a design, right, you can do this and say to yourself, I'm going to make a piece where I do 1 block every month, and it's going to represent how I feel that month, or something I've read that month, or just where my head is at or my heart is at this month. Cass says you can staple the foundation fabric part of the hooked piece over an art canvas. Then you can attach it to a floating frame. It is a charming way to frame small pieces, 8 by 8 or 10 by 10. Kaz, that is true, and that is a great point. Being able to just wrap your finished rug hooked piece around a canvas, like a I wonder if I have a canvas right here. Wouldn't that be nice if I had a canvas right here? Because I've got all this artwork right here, but I don't have a canvas right there. I kind of do. Let me show you this one, and then I can show you. Because I think you're going to appreciate this anyway. This is like a canvas, but this is a wooden panel that my sister did years ago for me. So canvases look like that. This one happens to be wood, and she painted the side. This is my cat Lunchbox, who was one of the great loves of my life. She was a good girl. She was one of my great loves. But if this was like a canvas, right? Some canvases are thick like Shadowbox, and some of them are much thinner. Um, with rug hooking, you're not going to want one of the ones that's like a board, right? It's going to be too thin, and you're going to run into the same problem you would run into if you had like a really inexpensive hoop, right? That whole problem of how do I hide the mess in the back? So if you're going to do Kaz's technique and you're going to go for covering a canvas, it doesn't have to be this thick, right? This is like a big time expensive wooden canvas, but they do make them this thick, right? They're out there in lots of different sizes. But even one that's even a fraction of the size, it is great to put your piece right on top. And I think I did a video of this at one point. I should do another video. I know videos come and go, and then they get buried because I have thousands of videos out there. Pretend that it covered the whole thing, right? And I was going to cover my whole piece like this, pretend it was all done, and then it would be a question of coming back here, wouldn't it? And I'd go, oh, well, you know where my problem is now. And you're going to do the old envelope, right? It would all be stapled down nice. I'm sure I did a video of this. You would do it right down nice and sharp, right, with staples, boom, boom, boom. And it would be all wrapped around, and then you'd look at it from the front. It's not going to work because the material is too small, and this is much too big. But it is a super easy technique because isn't it nice to be able to finish your hooked rug using a staple gun? That's nice, right? That is just a nice thought when you get to the end and you're thinking, should I whip stitch? Should I put a braid on it? Should I sew it under? Should I crochet the edges? Or should I take out the staple gun? It's a nice option, isn't it? Thank you, Kaz. It's a very nice option. This always feels compelling to me. I think I tried to do this once in Ribbon Candy Hooking, a kind of calendar thing where I put out lots of ideas for, I think it was, what did I call that? I think I called it the Baltimore album blocks. And the blocks still sell individually, but there weren't a lot of takers for doing one block a month together. So I thought, bad idea. Could always try it again in the future. Things come and go, and we feel differently, but I loved that idea maybe like 4 years ago when I first tried it. Think about it. It's something fun. If you're one of these people who say as soon as you hit January, all new me this year, all new me, I've got all these plans for myself, you might be the kind of person who thinks like a block a month, block of the month club, right? Quilters do it. I'm doing it. Something fun to think about. We got to talking about, Ruth says, we got to talk about temperature blankets. What about, those are so cool. And I saw an example of that in quilting when we were at Sauter Village. I think I posted that. Ow. I hate it when the glasses closes on my hair and pulls like one hair out, right? I hope it pulled a gray one out. Yeah, Ruth, that's a really good idea. So I'm sure that I made a poster, or I hope I made a post of it. If you don't know what a temperature blanket is, you can do these temperature projects with any sort of medium, right? You could do it in painting if you wanted to. Ruth is talking about a blanket that I think, Ruth, that represents you're tracking, or you're looking at data that tracks the temperature over the course of a period of time, whether it is the year or whether it is a decade or the century. I feel like the piece that I saw that was a quilt in Sauter Village. Where's Sauter Village? What's the name of that town? Something like begins with an O, I feel. Help me out if you know. But it had a cute little town center, and it had a gallery, and we happened to go where there was a show on, right? So we drank some wine and ate some cheese and all that. And I saw this temperature quilt. And so I think it was a century for her. She was making a statement about global warming, and she had data that was built into this quilt. If you're a quilter, think about what a Roman coins quilt looks like with all of these sort of columns of stacks of color, right? The stacks are big jump, like big red one, and then a little orange, and then a little yellow, and then a big jump. So each going across, each column represented X amount of years, and it showed the temperature as it was recorded from year to year. And looking at the temperatures in that kind of a color code creates a pattern, an irregular pattern, more like a graph, right? If you were to do, like, God forbid, right, if you're over your office days looking at sort of a chart where things are colored, it's that kind of a thing, but often contains a lot of data and a lot more. Archibald, thank you. That's exactly where it was, Karen. Thank you. It's a really interesting project to think about. Temperature quilts, temperature blankets. I haven't seen a rug hooker, I don't think yet, do a temperature project like this. But what it does is it creates some sort of embedded storytelling. In other words, you know that you're looking at an abstract piece that represents a period of time and the temperature during that period of time. You know it. But a person approaching it without knowing that it's a temperature project thinks it's an abstract project, right? And then when the person maybe reads the tag and finds out it's a temperature quilt or a temperature rug, it becomes a lot more interesting because you realize it effectively is a graph. It's a really interesting project. I'm glad that you brought that up, Ruth. Something else to think about going into the new year, right? Not that it's particularly a New Year project, but it's a project that could have a cutoff, like a year cutoff kind of a thing. Really interesting. So thinking about block of the month and thinking about different crafts. This is knitting, still at the same gallery. This is still one of Danny's photos for us. Knitting different blocks. And this is way outside of my comfort zone, my knowledge zone. My knitting is very, very basic, and that is, right, generous. This is another fiber art piece that represents a Baltimore album quilt or a block of the month or whatever you like. But it's a series of individual units that go together beautifully, right? And a lot of that is the order, right? I think when you make a piece like this, you sit with your blocks and you fuss indefinitely. You fuss and you second guess yourself. It's like some kind of a weird board game or, a elaborate game of solitaire where you just keep moving things up and down and around. And finally, you come up with a color composition where the energy is pretty balanced, the weight's balanced, all of it. But this is just doing what we're talking about with knitted blocks. And because I'm not a knitter, I'm not sure how these are done, whether it's like freehand or whether sort of just loose, like knitting on your lap, or whether this kind of thing might be done with a knitting machine. I don't know. I never got far enough with my knitting machine, which it translates as I had a knitting machine and I never took it out of the box, right? So I never really got far with it. I never took it out of the box. But I am wondering whether you could do this kind of stuff on a knitting machine or on a small loom, because you know how far these small lap looms are going these days. I'm seeing 1,000 different looms. They're all called something else. You can use your yarn, your leftover scraps, possibly strips. I don't know. Has anybody ever tried a small loomed project using yarn? Right, because you do need yarn, because you need either the warp or weft, I would think, to be very regular and quite tight. I wonder if you could do weaving using yarn and wool strips. I wonder if anybody's done that. This piece makes me wonder if that's possible, but I don't know enough about weaving to know whether it is. Be really curious because it's a beautiful piece. This is another woven piece from the same show. This is a very sort of Scandinavian or Eastern European, right? Those two styles of folk art are weirdly close, right? Scandinavian and Eastern European. But it is like a representation of a bird, maybe a rooster or a hen, something like that. Very mid-century modern style, very folky, done with weaving. So this is another piece. I know a lot of you are weavers. This is another piece that's a great mystery to me. How'd you do that? Right? Because I'm seeing the fringe on the two sides, but not top to bottom. Can't imagine how it's done. I would love to learn more about this because it is a beautiful piece. Can anybody tell me just simply, if you're a weaver or you know about weaving, let's say that this piece was something small, something like, let's say like 18 tall, that kind of thing. Would you say in general that weaving takes more time or less time than rug hooking? I'm not looking to convert, I'm just curious. And second question, if anybody knows the answers to these, would you say that weaving takes more material or less material than rug hooking? And let's say not counting the fringe. Ruth says, oh, it could be done. In weaving, it's called overshot. Okay, I know what overshot looks like. I just don't know how it's done. I mean, I've seen it done. I've seen the cards, right, that are like the patterns for it, that have the punches in it. I've seen the way cards look for either overshot or brocade, but I've never seen someone actually doing it. So this is, Judy, that's you, right? This is charted color work, but you could do the same patterns with embroidery, weaving, or rug hooking or punch. Absolutely. So Judy, thanks for bringing it back to our conversation from last week. If you like this pattern, of course you can do it as rug hooking or embroidery or weaving or punch. That's the great thing about looking at fiber images or any images. Fiber to fiber is the easiest crossover. That's what's so nice about looking at gallery shows like this, because you say to yourself, I don't weave, but God, I love this piece, and I would love, to me, this reminds me of like kitchen stuff, because it reminds me of some of like our cookie stuff, our canisters, those wooden canisters with like the bird painted on it, I would think of this for myself as a kitchen piece. And I think, oh, I would like to make that, but I would make it as a rug hooker, as a hooked piece. Cass says, weaving takes a lot more time. Ooh, interesting. Now, I'm wondering if, but Ruth says less time. We used to have a weaving business. So you know what? I bet it depends on what your loom is like, right? Because the other day I went to, let me show you the photo. I was going to put it into the show tonight, but I didn't think it was going to come up. I went to this historic house last Sunday after church. We had kind of a field trip, and we went to this house from 1799, our buddy Steve's house. He lives there, and the downstairs is open to the public, but he is lucky enough to live upstairs or attached or something like that, and he kind of cares for the house. And there's one room that's a loom room, right? And it always has been in the house as a loom room, and there was two weavers there that day, and one of them allowed me to sit and do some weavies. So I did, and I had the 2-foot pedals. It was as big as the room, this thing. I would not want to put it in this house. It was big as the room. It had like 2 piano pedals, just 2. And when I stepped on one, it lifted up some of the strings, and I was able to put the shuttle through, and then, what's this thing called? And tighten it up, right? So it was in there good. And then I stepped on the other pedal, and it raised the other set of strings, right, the second set of strings, and I was able to put the shuttle through the other way and then tighten it up. That made me think, and I wish I would have thought to ask this question later. Are there only 2 sets of strings? I'm just curious. If you're visualizing, here, let me show you. If you're visualizing what I was up to here, this is what I was up to. Wait a minute. What a beautiful house it was, too. So I was on this kind of a loom. It's a close-up, so it's not really going to help us with information. But I was sitting at it like it was a giant, piano. Is there ever more than? There's only 2 pedals. So does that mean there's only ever 2 sets of threads that would go up? Because one goes up, you shuttle through. The other one goes up, you shuttle through, and then it reverses, and you do it the other way, and then it reverses, you do the other way. And I got the impression with this loom that she was making placemats and runners, and she only had like this much, right? Just like the bird that we were looking at, she only had like this much of the string set to weave, right? The loom was really big, but she only had maybe 12 inches, and she was weaving long pieces. So she would do like a runner, and then somehow she must have made a gap, because she kept it seemed like she was keeping the finished pieces on it. Ruth, maybe you know this. And then she was adding more to it. And then later she would cut it, and then in between there would be fringe, right? She would gauge it so that there was like a break, and then she would cut it in between, and there'd be fringe. She was doing like one after, so that I guess she didn't have to rethread. I'm not sure that's the right word, the loom. It was so interesting to look, but everything in the house was interesting to look at. Kaz says, okay, wait a minute, let me go back. It would depend on what you were using for the weft. Okay, so if it's thicker, it probably goes a lot faster. Like what I was weaving on, like I was hardly weaving, right? I did like 2 shuttle movements. Um, if it was thicker, it probably would have gone faster. I was weaving, the thread was very thin, like string, like kite string, but she was using rag, like the kind of rag we would use for like rag rugs or for hooking, like big ripped up pieces of cotton. She was using those, and it was making it go really fast, but it was a rag rug. It was not overshot. It was not a bird. It did not have a pattern. It was really interesting to watch. Ruth says that there can be many more than 2. We had an 8 frame bloom. Oh my God. Does that mean there were 8 piano petals? You know what I mean, right? Wow. Now, is that like how overshot and brocade are made? Like they're just more intricate because there's more blooms? Um, Loom. Okay. Frame loom. Okay. I thought bloom was one of the words that sounds like a rug making loom. Okay. Maybe. Maybe. Like I said, there was room on both sides to make something that was like 7 feet wide. But she was making something the size of a placemat. And then she sold the placemats. She sold the placemats, Mom, right? And the runners for like $10. Like each. No, $10 for 2. Like it was crazy. They don't get a lot of visitors at that house because it's like not like one of the famous houses. I think they were just happy to make any money. It was so interesting being able to even sit at the loom and play with it. Okay, so it means you need more petals. You can raise different sets of weft threads to create different patterns. And the petals is what raises it, right? So the more times you want to raise, the more petals. I'm not going to get in. I'm going to stop here if it's not interesting, but I'm so curious about the possibilities here. Up to 30 rugs, not 230. Okay. Yes. Doing speech to text. Oh my God. I know I do it. I do that all the time. It's just always a disaster. Speech to text. Well, this is a beautiful little piece. And I guess if you were going to weave, this would be a lot easier to rug hook, right? Because you would just say, this part's yellow, let's take out the yellow. But when you're weaving this, I think it's got to be so. I wonder how much of weaving is thinking the time that goes into it. I wonder how much is thinking about what you're supposed to do next and, oh no, did I screw that up? Is that a big part of weaving? I'm just wondering. Because, of course, we know as rug hookers, if we were making this, and for example, you're looking at the little feet and it's like gold on one side and kind of mustard gold on the other, that would be easy to screw up, right? You'd really want to be careful about that. God, what a mystery. I'm telling you, what a mystery. This is the piece I was talking about earlier, sashiko, right? So this is like this is a collage piece, and it's done on a bag, right? This is like a little kind of handbag thing. Super cute. So you would just put your hand inside and be able to, it might be that this is already sewn together, and maybe it was just kind of possibly fabric glued or based stitched onto just a plain cotton bag, but then get a needle and thread and do all this sashiko work on it. And how cute is that? And there's a couple of circles that look like sort of yo-yos, but they're not. They're also sashiko stitched, and you can see the stitching runs off the main piece onto the background. Super, super interesting. What a fun piece. This is another thing, another sewing technique that we can easily incorporate into our pieces. Now, this looks more familiar. This is still not rug hooking. This is mini punch. So on the left, Pam Gerdis, both Pam Gerdis. On the left, sheep and perch. Oh, cute. And it says needle punch pillow. And on the right, home sweet home needle punch pillow. So actually, no, I'm second guessing myself. Let me make these bigger. Because it says needle punch, and I'm thinking, is it traditional needle punch, like Oxford needle punch? Or are these little doodlers Russian punch, the very, very small needle? Let's see if we can. You know, it's hard to tell, isn't it? It's hard to tell. Because I don't have a feeling for the size. You know, the little loops are so lustrous that my first instinct was that it was mini punch, just because I thought it looks more like floss than it does yarn. What's your impression? Do you feel like it looks more like floss? I mean, they might be large. I'm looking at the hardware behind it. They look pretty small. I think that this is mini punch. I don't think this is traditional. Yeah, Karen agrees. She thinks it's a mini punch, also known as the Russian punch. And you know what? These are large pieces for mini punch. It does look like it. The floss just looks different than yarn looks. Doesn't mean that if you go to the, you can go to the yarn store and get a thicker, like a sock weight yarn that's very, very glossy. What a nightmare that would be to punch with a traditional punch, though, right? Because they work a little bit differently. In my experience, when I'm using an Oxford style punch, and I've got anything glossy or slippery in it, it's much harder. It's much harder to use. It's harder to make the loops stay even and come out right. Mini punch with glossy floss seems to be a little bit easier to do. These are large pieces for mini punch, both super, super beautiful. And I have my new mini punch tool. I'll have to show it to you soon. I have it upstairs. Barbara turned me onto it at Solder. And so I have a new stand and the new punch. And yeah, this tool is kind of taking the world by storm. So that's going to be when we go to New York in December for Teddy's birthday, I typically bring my mini punch just because it's, the hotel room's small and small project is better. And I'm going to experiment with that and report back on mini punch. Maybe we'll do a little more mini punch together. This is another woven piece that is just so amazing. I think Elizabeth Lohman, I feel like we might have talked about her on last Friday's show. I think it was her little sort of yarn book that we looked at with all the colors that she had dyed. Do you remember? This is a woven piece, and this really struck me because at first glance I thought, oh, nice geometric pattern. But then at second glance, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Gosh, I mean, it's so, the little figures is what I'm seeing. Do you know that Klimt did a piece that, this reminds me of Klimt. Let me see if I can find it. He did a piece for a mural in a church once that was all of these little angels lined up, and it reminds me of this. It was so, so cute. It looks so difficult. Let me see if I can find that in a hurry. I know we looked at it in the Design Like Klimt class, but I would love to show it to you. It really, there it is, there it is, there it is. So this is very different, but I think you'll see what I mean. Hold on, let me get a really clear photo. See the little angels there, how they repeat? Klimt's is very different. Oh shoot, wait a minute, the page just went away. Hold on, I got this. And this is way more Klimt-esque, right? So, but here, let me come here. I just love the idea of doing a pattern with a little repeat of people. That's so appealing, easier in rug hooking. Klimt's piece looked like this, but it's really big. I'll wait for it to come into focus. Maybe you've seen this piece, but holy mackerel. So it's 2 rows of angels, and they are kind of interlocking, like the piece we were just looking at, by their hands, right? Isn't that what kind of like what we were looking at? That's what made me think of it. It seems like their hands are kind of interlocked. Also, did you see there was big art news today, since we're talking about Klimt. Let me bring this to you just because we're artists at heart, right? Klimt painting auction. You might have caught it. It was in a news feed. Let me show you this. I was so blown away with this. A painting of Klimt's just sold 3 days ago at auction. The highest price, $236.4 million. The highest price any painting has ever sold for, ever, at Sotheby's. And I think the title was formerly held by a different Klimt piece. I think it was the Adele portrait. This, I'll show you what it looks like, because you're probably going to say to yourself, I don't know that piece. And the reason you don't know this piece, which is so interesting, it's this piece. I don't know what the name of it is. It's one of the portraits, but you can look it up later. Here, let me just show it to you on my phone. If you don't know this piece, it's because this piece was taken by the Nazis, right? when they kind of blew through and stole and stockpiled art. They just took it out of people's houses and said, now it's mine. This is one of the pieces. This is another enormous portrait. One of the interesting things about this piece is that it is not from Klimt's so-called gold period, right? That was only 10 years of Klimt's life. We're taking a detour now for sure. That was only 10 years of Klimt's life because if you remember from the design, and that's still there at Ribbon Candy Hooking, I taught a design within the course of 1 year, Klimt lost his brother, his father, and his best friend. It was an awful year for him. And his father was a silversmith. And during that following year, he got so depressed and so checked out. And he was so inspired by the, hold on, you can come visit. So inspired by the mosaics at Ravenna, which are in Italy, which are very glittery, but also thinking back to his dad. And he did all that work. That I'm live. So watch your everything. Watch your mouth. Watch your clothing. Watch your everything.
There won't be another glory incident.
There won't be another glory incident. Thank you.
Why is your thing so out of focus?
I don't know. It is out of focus. Isn't that frustrating? Let me come over here. Let me just finish this thought. Let me finish this follow-through thought. Anyway, Klimt's gold period only lasted for 10 years, and everybody thinks about Klimt as being just this, how do you fix that, Joss? Just this all sort of gold. It's not a dirty lens, because I didn't touch the lens. Wait, you fixed it. You fixed it. You got the magic touch, lady. So this isn't one of those paintings, but
What's my tongue look like?
You're probably eating Takis. The thing about this one, that the reason it made so much money was because the story of the Nazis taking it, it survived, right? It wasn't destroyed. And who bought it? Somebody bought it. It'll come to me. I'll tell you if I think of it. Heiress to a huge, huge fortune. What was it? It was a product that we all know. In any case, in heiress to this, you got lots of your buddies saying hi to you, Joss. She says hi back. This woman bought it from this very, very wealthy family, and she was sort of like a recluse. She didn't show it, she didn't share it. People forgot that she even had it. She had it for decades and decades, and the painting was not talked about. People sort of half forgot about it, and she just passed away, came up for auction. Nobody had seen it or talked about it for almost a century. And when it hit the market, people went crazy for it. So it is interesting. Lauder, Estee Lauder, thank you. The Estee Lauder fortune, right? That must have been a lot of money in makeup, right? So interesting. But anyway, that's your Klimt news for today. That's your fine art news for today, just in case you want to be up on all of that. But this is a woven piece, and I feel it has that in common with that particular Klimt. And I think it's just so super charming. I think this is the last piece I have from Danny's show, and it just goes to show the variety in the styles of textile that were represented in this one show that are currently being represented. This is applique. This is wool applique. So again, using the same thing that we use, but what's different, right? I'm going to challenge you here. This looks different, right? This applique looks a little bit different. What do you think is going on here that's giving it that kind of shadowed look? A choice was made that's a little bit different than most applique that we see. And I think it makes a big difference to the appearance of this piece. Since there's a delay here, I know some of you are writing, and I'll read the responses. But in this case, this artist, it looks like Joan Hines, is that what it says? She has made very thoughtful choices about when you do applique, you are typically doing buttonhole stitch, right? It's just the one stitch. She made some very, Judy says, is it raised like trapunto? Oh, Judy, you know, I wasn't thinking about that, but I think it is raised like trapunto. Oh, I'm going to have to stretch it. I'm going to stretch it in a minute, and we'll check that out. It does look, when I'm looking at the tulips, that it's raised like trapunto. I was thinking of the way, of the colors of the buttonhole stitch, right? She has made thoughtful decisions in different parts of the composition. The yellow flower has bright red stitching. Some of the other flowers have like the leaves have like black stitching, and it really makes them look like a bit shadowy on the edges. It makes them look very high relief. Let's see how high relief it actually is. She also has the cutout on the leaf, which looks to me more like Teveve. right? Remember the segment we did on Teveve? The, oops, don't do it. Um, the segment we did on Teveve, which is like the reverse cut, like a mola cut, Hawaiian quilting. That was one of our big things a few years ago. I'm going to stretch it as big as I can. So let's see. Oh, you know what? There is some raised. The tulips are a little bit raised, and you know it might be that there's a little bit of padding in other areas as well. Are you thinking about the vase and the petals on the flowers? Because some of those look a bit puffy. It's very hard to tell, isn't it? Could be a little bit of trapunto. The polka dots, certainly the way that the petals on the tulip are laid over each other gives height. I'm not certain that that's trapunto. It might just be like layering it up higher. It's got like twice the height. But it could be that there's a little bit of stuffing. It could also be that the wool that's being used in this piece is very lofty and very soft and thick. How do you do that? How do I do that? Well, if you want to do a piece like this that has applique, and of course you can combine this with rug hooking too, you can just take your material, whether, your wool, just put it, wash it on hot, felt it up, make it as thick as you can, put it in the dryer on high. If what you want is for it to be really thick and have a lot of body, you just give it heat, right? You just make it felted, right? Make it hot and uncomfortable and a little bit felted. And then you put this many stitches into a big thick piece of wool, and it is going to buckle a little bit. It is going to respond this way, and it does make it look puffy. Could be a little bit of trapunto. It could just be, these are a lot of stitches. Think about when you see applique, normally, there's not this many stitches, right? When we see penny rugs and stuff like that, the stitches are there very, very spare, right? It's very spare amount of stitches just to hold the piece down, right? This is very decorative stitching, and I think the more stitches you put into a thick piece of wool, the more buckled and ruffly that wool is going to become. Karen says, Frida Kahlo self-portrait just sold for $54.5 million, setting new record of female artists. Ooh, that is good to know as well. I love to stay in the loop with this kind of news. Still a man's world, right? You can't name a woman whose art at this moment, if it's not Frida, it's not anyone, is it? Is going to sell for as much as like the big hitters like Klimt, Van Gogh, Chagall, Picasso. Nothing against those artists, but it is still a man's world, even in the arts. Can you believe it? Well, everything's changing right now. We'll keep our eye on that space. Anyway, this was a beautiful show. There were lots of techniques here. Danny, thank you so much for sending those pieces. It was so much fun to look at those. Gave us so much food for thought. There was so much there. And makes the final point before I move to Patricia's collection of rugs from the New York, the Vestal Pearl McGowan Guild, before we move to look at those hooked rugs. Just making the point that when you see advertisements pop up on Facebook or whatever that say, oh, there's a fiber show coming up or a mixed media show coming up, maybe you think to yourself, no, it's not a rug show, so it's not really my thing. It might be more your thing than you think, because fiber is fiber, right? Fiber equals fiber. It has a perfect one-to-one relationship to itself. You see other pieces that are done in fiber, whether they're woven or quilted or needle felted or whatever, and you can see how easy it would be to do something similar in rug hooking. Something to think about, right? All right, Patricia, thank you for sending these beautiful pieces. And if you're there, if you remember who did them, please give a shout out. Some of them I can see the cards, but others I can't. This piece, which it says it's called A Study by P.H. Now, Patricia, I know you're P.C., so I don't think that this is you, but this piece just knocked me over. I would love to know who the maker is, and I would love to know if this is, I'm guessing it's an original design. This has such, it has a lot going on. Let's break it down and talk about what's going on in this piece that makes it so exceptional. So one of the obvious things is color what's substitutions, right? When we're looking at how to do a skin tone, um, it is a lot of fun, and it has been very popular lately to, rather than pay attention to color, right? Dark flesh versus light flesh versus medium flesh, rather than going that route, to instead be paying attention. I can hear the water going really loud in that pipe. Someone must be doing something up there. This could be annoying for us recording. I don't know if that's the toilet or the washing machine. Sorry about that. Maybe it goes away. Instead of paying attention to color, it's interesting to think about doing tonal value instead. In other words, if you need to create a color that is medium, it doesn't have to be medium flesh. If you're working in blues, it could be medium blue. If you want it to be green, it could be medium green. It doesn't have to be flesh colored medium. That's some of what's going on here, because we're seeing some values for the flesh color that go way more toward pink, toward orange, toward a very soft kind of mauve purple. Those are all color substitutions, but because they have been done thoughtfully and carefully, we are still seeing the different skin tone, the little cheeks, right? And the face is stylized. So you have to take that into account too. This is someone who is a killer artist, right? The exaggeration in the way that the face is drawn is stylization, is characterization. It could even be called caricature, right? It's very stretched. It's long and stretched. There are some things that are exaggerated, like the big eyes, like the long bridge of the nose, very elegant long nose, like the big sort of pouty, very sexy kind of a mouth, right? These are all choices. And if this is done as caricature, if you've ever had your caricature drawn, you know that people who are good at caricature are very, very, it's a gift, right? I know that it's taught, but it's one of those things that I feel like, I don't know, I feel like some people have it built in and others just don't see it. When you're doing a portrait, whether it's a self-portrait or a portrait of someone else, and you say to yourself, it's really this. I think of this person as having a long face and having these big eyes and these big full lips. You want to draw things in a way that you bring out the points that are most important to you. This person has very tousled hair, right? The hairstyle is very sort of bohemian, very loose. It's like a modern do you mean Fauvist portrait, or Fayum? Fayum? Maybe you mean Fayum. I just don't know that word, from 1,500 years ago. I'm going to look that up on my phone. This is possibly a new word for me, and that is my favorite. Let me see. Fayum. Okay, Fayum is a city in Egypt. Fayum portraits. I see. I didn't know that's what they were called. Good one. Here, look. You're going to recognize these as well. Are these the same portraits that were used on the front of like a coffin when there was a portrait there? Yes, they are. Okay. So you've seen stuff like this at museums. I feel like I have seen these kinds of portraits in the Egyptian wing in caustic painting. Um, and they're like on the top of the coffin sometimes. Dave, oh, great to see you back from a marathon coffee date. Fantastic. Flying high on caffeine. Sounds great. Sounds great. I hope you sleep. Thank you. That is so interesting. That is so interesting. I mean, these are such incredible, evolved portraits that, when we look at work that Egyptian people did, I'm going to say men, right? It's just unbelievable. Like, it's absolutely unbelievable. Very good. It does have that stretched look, right? And I would say in more contemporary language, the artist El Greco did kind of the same thing, was pulling from the same period of fine art and did a lot with the stretched faces. But in the case of El Greco, people were stretched to the point of almost looking tortured, right? He was doing a lot of social commentary, and that's what he meant to happen. This is very good parallel, but stylistically, it is so interesting and so superior to 99% of the portraits that I have seen and will see in rug hooking. This is so exceptional. It's a very, what would you call this expression if you had to choose one word? I would say maybe, I don't know, for me, disappointed. Maybe I'm wrong, I think it would read differently for each of us. But I love that it's a very serious expression, or it's a very still expression, right? Very still. She's not caught in conversation. She's still. But the hair is very tousled. And it's further really interesting because the shadow is extreme, right? There's like there's a shadow. There's two shadows across her face. One across her nose, and the other across her eye. And it's not literal because that's not the way that the shadow would fall. Also across her, collarbone and her neck, just her collarbone is highlighted. And the background frozen, and the background is very dark. You see there is color variation in the background. It's just an exceptional piece. It's a beautiful storytelling piece. I love the shadows. I love the color substitutions. I love the expression on the face. I normally personally don't like portraits because if I don't know who the person is, I have a hard time relating to the portrait. In this case, it's not working like that for me because I'm relating to the expression, right? The expression is so, I don't want to say extreme, but it's so riveting that to me it doesn't matter who the person is because I'm sold, right? I'm really buying into this moment. It's very androgynous subject. It is. It is. It absolutely is. There's something very mysterious and beautiful about this piece. The way that the eyes are shining as well. It's just an extraordinary piece. And I have to say, I love how dark it is. And I love that little tomato border around the edge. If you could not pick a better color, that tomato, because the background is very, very dark. We are seeing cool blues. We are seeing very, very dark reds, right? So it's geometric in the background. That dark, oh God, the shadows, all of the colors, right, are like blondes and blues. And then we've got this opposite tomato red border, just a small border. Really, really riveting. Picasso-esque, absolutely. Karen says it reminds you of Medusa. The hair does. There's something very untidy about the hair. I mean, this could be Egyptian, right? The character face. It could also be like an illustration for Jane Eyre. Remember the crazy lady in the, not that this person looks crazy, right? Because I don't know who this is, but remember the lady in the attic, the first wife in the attic who sets the fire with the bed covers and all that. It could be anything. It could be any moment in history. It could be any moment in art, in literature, in history. It could be today. It could be this morning. It could be tomorrow, right? This is like a really eternal figure. And God, yeah, I mean, I would love to try something like this, but I feel like to accomplish something like this, you not only have to be a great artist, I think you have to have a real vision. There's way more than a couple tricks going on here. And all of the tricks are technically difficult. So there's stuff going on with contrast, color contrast, there's color substitutions, there's shadow, right? There's a very, very graphic look going on here, but it does still have that sort of, that's why I was confused by the word, because the Fauvists did a lot. Fauvist literally means like wild man, wild person. They did a lot with color substitution. They did a lot with dark and light. They did a lot of portraiture that looks just like this too. So really interesting. I would love to know who did this and talk about the inspiration, the evolution of the pattern, the decisions that were made while hooking it, whether the shadows were part of the original plan, because the shadows are very extreme and they're a little bit menacing, right? If this was like if this was on the TV and it was a photo, I'd be like, what am I watching? Like Columbo or one of those 1970s like crime dramas or something. It's very extreme and theatrical, the darkness to it, and it's a little bit scary, right? It has a bit of a scary. To me, it's not like, oh, she's standing in the moonlight and it's a happy, warm summer night. It's just dark out. It's very extreme shadow. It's really an incredible storytelling piece. It's be a great piece to put in front of kids and ask them to tell a story, right? Very different piece, but also gorgeous. I'll try to stretch it later, and you see if you can help figure out the maker and the designer on this piece. As a composition, this is just as unusual as the piece we saw before in its own category, right? In its own lane. This is a play on a very traditional rug. We're looking at a scroll border rug with an open field in the center with flowers. We've heard that before, right? We've heard that thousands of times before, but this is very different. Look at the way the flowers are done. Super modern. Not just the shapes of the flowers and the variety, but also like the white. You see the white in the corners, the stylized like dots of white, the fact that there's outlining being done in white. Very, very different. Very contemporary, energized. It is funky. It is fun. It is colorful. It is a scroll flower rug. I mean, that's really. No, I don't think Patricia did say who it was. Did anybody? Did I miss that comment? No. Let me stretch this out and see if you can see. Remember, my view is like a postage stamp compared to yours. See if anybody can make out the name on the card. I can make it bigger, but I'm afraid if I make it bigger, we're going to lose quality. That's a sharp looking rug. Clever design. Really is, isn't it? And you know, it's funny. I'm going to make it small again, but maybe somebody caught the name. It's funny because we do see a lot of artists, rug hooking artists who work in this very fun and funky, um, high energy style. Hold on one second. My brain is working. Sharon Smith was one of them. Not quite so graphic. Um, Now, who is the person who does? She does lots of city scenes that look a little bit like Hundertwasser, and it's houses upon houses, but they have swirly roofs and things like that. PH. Oh, she said who PH was? Oh, wait a minute. Let me go back. I missed it. I'm so sorry. I missed it. Okay, wait a minute. Patricia, where are you? Patricia, there she is. Paulette Hackman. Oh, Paulette Hackman. Oh, I've met Paulette Hackman, is the artist. And also, she has written a rug hooking book called Story Rugs and Their Stories. Of course, Patricia, of course. Hold on one second. Let me flash that to you because we have looked at that rug. We have looked at that book. And oh, we loved that book. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry I missed that. Thank you. Thank you for catching that. Okay, so Paulette, yeah. Oh, God, did we love that. Paulette Hackman. Oh, no, it's looking. Oh, there. No, it was still there. It was looking under Etsy. Dang it. Wait a minute. Let me do it one more time. I want to show you the cover so you can say, aha. Hold on just a second. Story rugs. That was one of my all-time favorites because just as you would imagine, each one of those rugs had such like, oh, I remember some of the stories were so heartbreaking. And some of them are so uplifting. It was such a mix. Remember this book, Story Rugs by Paulette Hackman? God, we loved this book. We loved this book. I hope that one is in your library. Oh, that was Paulette, huh? Oh my gosh. Absolutely beautiful. Patricia, please tell her how much we enjoyed seeing that. Now, Karen's saying of this one, very 60s and 70s. You know, the design is, but the colors aren't. Now, isn't that funny that it can be like that? Design-wise, you are spot on. It is super 60s, 70s because everything was stylized in the 60s and 70s. Everything was simplified and stylized. In the 60s, it was more, it was the pop art movement, right? And it was, everything was sort of bright, either summer of love colors, very, very bright, tie-dye, neon, psychedelic. And toward the 70s, the pendulum swung very far, and we were looking at super subdued, earthy color palettes, Brady Bunch color palette. And it couldn't have been any different, but the same sorts of motifs and the same exaggerating simplification of motifs was taken through both of those decades. This for me is like the color palette is contemporary, but could also be like 90s, right? Maybe not bright enough for 80s, but 90s. Very colorful palette. And it's interesting that it's black with the white scroll. It's also interesting that the white scroll, there's a little bit of gray in there, so it's not completely solid. But it is interesting that it is almost solid because, you know, that makes a heavy border. But hold on. It's not a heavy border because a few tricks. Number one, it's white. Number two, the border is somehow weakened by those little sort of Queen Anne lacy flowers in the corner and the one in the middle. Somehow it gives you the impression that something is like perforated or punctured, like a tin candle, like light shade. You know what I mean? It weakens the feel of that white border. It being white in itself means that it's going to be a lot harder for white to overwhelm us than, for example, black. So in that regard, it's a fun choice. It's a great example of how you can get away with a border that is quite solid. The fact of the color is one of the things. The fact of it being interrupted by the edges of flowers is another of the things. The fact that it's being encroached upon by the flower petals is also weakening the weight of it, right? It's softening it up a little bit. And the third and final thing that I think works away at the white, the heaviness of the white border, are all of those colorful pinstripes. They're like little colorful needles, right, that are pointing in at that border. If you can picture it the other way around, if it was a white background with a black scroll border and it was this heavy, all in black, we would probably be saying, wow, that is, yeah, that really threw the thing weight-wise. But you see, it doesn't work in reverse. It's like an experiment in color. Goretti says it's a happy rug. And yes, it's also very modern deco, very well put. The flowers that have that, the one on the middle left has that Macintosh look to it, right? The way that it folds in on itself. The other one's super, super deco, right? Very stylized. And the little dots, like the little white pitons with the stems and sticks, that's very deco. That's also very mid-century modern. This is really sort of compilation rug. It's a hat tip to many times, many styles, and while it's a super colorful rug, it still is quite contained. There's a ton of colors in here, but it doesn't strike you as being an out of control, off the charts, wacky color rug, does it? Some rugs are super wacky and colorful. For me, this isn't one of them. And I think part of that is down to the black background, and part of that is down to the white outlining. Somehow it's pinning it in place. It's magic. And the funky shape of that scroll border, right, reminds me of a mirror. Like when, sometimes we go to like the Disney section of toys, in department stores, like the toy section, you always see these wonky mirrors that are like funky, and they have this kind of a shape. You know what I mean? They're really whimsical, very cool shape. This is something that, and I don't want to take away from the designer because this is not an insult, but just in terms of enabling all of us to do great creative original work that's fun and energized like this is the kind of pattern that you could do, because what's the first thing that you need to do? Lay down the border, right? Is it a heavy border? If it's too heavy, you know what? You can use your center flowers to just cut into it, right? Would you do the same, right? And then you just draw flowers however you want. Maybe you make snowflakes out of cutting up paper and unfolding it and tracing it onto your background. Maybe you make one flower and all of the flowers are the same, but they're all different colors, right? Whatever you do in the field is yours to choose. Maybe you make the field a different color, right, than the background. Fractured fairy tales frames, fairy tales frame. Oh, I like that. It's a tongue twister, but I like that. So many questions in this rug. If you did this rug, would you make the outer border a different color than the middle, or would you stick with this for the continuity? That would be an interesting question. Would you keep the border, the little pinstripes of color, or would you do like a, the checkerboard people? Boy, my memory's not good. I hope I'm not like slip sliding away here with memory loss or something. Um, the couple that do all the checkerboard stuff that costs a fortune and is sold in department stores. Anyway, would you do this kind of a border? Would you do a checker border? Would you do more flat? There's so many places you could go in your mind with this kind of a pattern. And all you need to do when you're sitting there at your tablet or at your sketchbook, Mackenzie Childs, thank you so much. Thank you. Is just start with your border. Whether it's scroll, whether it's a more elaborate scroll, whether it's a finer scroll, start with a fractured fairy tale frame. And then think about what kind of a story you want to put in the middle. I think a scattered motif like this is a really good call. You know, you could do a rug like this and put a Magdalena center in it and have some upside down cows and pigs and horses and dogs and lions and tigers and bears, you know, turning every which way like little dervishes in the center. You could do that too, right? It would work the same way. You could still have them overlapping on the border like that. It would work the same way. And by the time you finish the center, if that's the way you work, you could say to yourself, I don't know, what do I want to put in the border? Because I could choose anything. Interesting, isn't it? It's interesting to stumble upon a rug like this and to realize that as beautiful and unique and special as it is, the formula for the rug is universal because it's the same formula that Pearl McGowan used. And you could use this formula too. Maybe this weekend, if you assign yourself a piece of homework for the weekend, maybe this weekend sit down with your sketchbook or your tablet open and say, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do 3 designs or 5 designs where I put the border in first and I'm going to sketch them out. And it might be that I say, I don't have anything here, but it might be that you say, oh my God, look at what I've done. My God, what have I done? So interesting to think about, right? Now here's another beauty. I'll stretch this too and we'll see if we can see who did this one. Fractured Fairy Tales was an early 70s cartoon series. Oh, wait a minute. Uh-oh, look what happened. You can see nope, we're not doing that tonight. You're not seeing my mess. Okay, wait a minute. Fractured Fairy Tales. I want to see what the style of art looked like. Fractured Fairy Tales. I'm so curious now because I love that name. That would have been a great name for a book. Fractured Fairy Tales. Retellings. Okay, retellings of traditional tales that alter the story's elements, such as point of view. Oh God, how interesting. Characters or plot, often to create a humorous or satire effect. That is so interesting. So this happens all the time lately, right? Like Wicked, right? Wicked is coming out as the second movie, and Stephen Sondheim did this in Into the Woods, where you take a character that everyone knows, like Prince Charming, and he turns out to be a bastard, right? He's not at all like we thought he would, and it's funny, and it is satire. Let me see if I can find an image to show you. I see. It does look familiar, right? This is what Fractured Fairy Tales. That makes me want to order that. I wonder if there's like a compilation. That's really fun. That's really fun. It says Rocky and Bullwinkle Wiki fandom. Wonder if it was like a segment of that show or something. Gosh, okay, so it was a cartoon too, because that must be from like a live show, right? The Fractured Fairy Tales. Do y'all remember that? Not really PC. Okay, yeah. I could see that being a thing. But you know, moment in time, right? Moment in time. Interesting. Yes, you remember those. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, it must have been either right before or right after it would have hit. I mean, I was born in 72, so maybe I was a little bit right before, right? Interesting. Yeah, that was a good contribution. I'm going to be looking at that on my phone in bed tonight. Now, here's another beauty that fits that traditional rug hooking. It's our sweet spot, isn't it? It's a primitive. What has this got going on? That name some things about this rug that when you look at it, you think they are hysterical. You think, okay, we talk about this a lot. This is one of the classic tropes, one of the classic tricks, devices that we use in primitive rug hooking. There's a whole bunch of them here. Judy says they were hilarious, and yes, perhaps review before showing to a modern audience. Okay. That can happen with so many shows that I love, you know. And if I just think back to the way my grandmother spoke, she falls into that category too. Gail, you love this one, huh? I love this one too. I'm going to look to see what some of your answers are. But for me, when I look at this, I think, isn't it great that when you are working on a primitive, one of the best things you can do for yourself if you're designing is to use multiples. Any composition in multiples, you've heard me say it before, you'll hear it again, God willing. Um, any composition made up of multiples is going to be strong because it creates contrast. It creates the opportunity to say these are all 3 chickens, but look at they're shaped different. They have very different bodies, just like human beings. They have very different bodies. One is very stout and rotund, another one is squat, another one kind of tall and skinny. It makes a funny joke. It's very relatable. it makes a funny joke, and it gives you the chance to experiment with three of the same thing, create different patterning. You could really go out on a limb color-wise and pattern-wise, because this composition is going to hold together no matter what, because it's a composition that's made of multiples. You see one chicken, you've seen them all. You've seen one, and you say to yourself, I know they're all chickens. So that already is solid in your mind, whether they're done like Delft in blue and white, whether they're done like Dresden plate quilt blocks and they're all crazy colorful, whether they're done all chopped up like G's Bend quilt. You're still going to look at it, and as long as there's high contrast to the background, and you're going to say, yep, I get it, they're chickens, and now my eye is looking to see how they're different, and isn't that interesting, and isn't that fun to check that out, you know? Um, yes, Judy, not context. Context is everything, right? But I think that the idea of there being three makes it very fun, very funny, very primitive. And of course, in the border, we're used to seeing these big, thick, heavy borders in primitive rug hooking. In this one, we are seeing the added touch of having these sort of pennies, right? There's this wavy motion that looks like a traditional border. You can almost see the fractured frame, right? You see that black outline going around. It almost looks like another kind of wonky frame, a fractured frame kind of a thing. But it's very subtle, and there is not a color change. The border remains brown on brown, but that one crisp line going through in black and navy shows you that there is a frame kind of embedded in the border. You could go in any direction with that if you wanted to separate the colors or not. If you wanted to, when you're hooking this pattern, kind of bleed the blue out to that line border, and so it would be an irregular shaped inner field, and then in very irregular shaped thinner border. You could have done that too. I mean, it's so pretty. I love the addition of the pennies, right? That is so cool. Whenever I see circles done in rug hooking, it makes me think, ooh, it would also be interesting to not hook the circles and literally hook around them, but embed pennies, like a penny rug pennies. I always think, ooh, that's so fun. I want to do that, and I have not done that yet. Another beautiful piece. Let me stretch it a little bit so we can see it. I'm watching your conversation here too, and I'm curious about the Rapunzel now. Oh, let's see. I can almost see this one too. So the pattern is Pearl, May, and Laverne. Is that what that says? The designer, oh, the name of it is Pearl, May, and Laverne. And the designer is Spruce Ridge Studios, and the maker is Susan. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I was close on this one. Who can ZW, is it Zwart? Love this rug and love the colors. Me too, primitive colors, right? That kind of mixed oatmeal color, all of the different blues, very, very rich indigo color, all of the browns. Browns kind of have to be present in these classic primitive rugs, particularly of like barnyard subject. The yellow is a classic, the olive green drab, right? The terracotta. This is a classic primitive rug in so many ways. I'm going to move on, but if anybody can see Susan's name and write it down, I would love to be able to say it out loud. Beautiful piece. Very fun. And another gorgeous piece. Now I have this one tipped, and I'll stretch that. I'll stretch the thing in a minute. Sorry, I'm going to have to try to show you this because wait, this is ridiculous right here. Oh, wait, but let me move my phone. Can you see that little face? The table's right in the way. Look at that little face. Oh, uh-oh. Uh-oh. All right. Sorry, buttons. I'll shut up. Cute. Zwart. Thank you. Okay, so Zwart in Dutch is black, so it's Susan Black. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Zwart. Oh, you can hear him snoring, Mom. Oh. With the like, I think it's the toilet, with the toilet pumping water and him snoring. I might have to rethink my studio space down here. He's feeling very relaxed now. He loves to be sitting with Mama on the bench. So, okay, so let's come back over here. Now, this is another beauty. You see, this McGowan Guild in, I almost said Vespers, not Vespers, Vestal Virgins, Vestal, New York. Such different style, right? Everybody's got such a different style. There's so much variety in this one guild. And as I've said before, I've been to this guild. Little dog. I've been to this guild, and this is such a friendly, welcoming, very. There's a lot of variety in this guild, right? Of style. There's lots of people of different ages, of different tastes who are working on very different pieces. It was an exciting place to be because there was so much variety, you know. And there's nothing wrong with a guild that's really cohesive. And there's a lot of there's a lot of guilds where I go to speak, and I can see that they have almost become like a family, which is beautiful in its own way, right? Almost become like a family, and tend to do like they all do a lot of prati, for example. If one does a prati, then everyone tries prati, and they kind of stay on the same page with each other and do very similar techniques. And that, again, is beautiful in its own way, right? That shows everyone kind of taking the journey very close together. But other guilds, like the McGowan Guild in Vestal, New York, was, to me, my impression was like, wow, could not be more different. Everybody's working on different pieces. And it made it a lot of fun to kind of walk around and see what people were working on, just all those different personalities reflected. Um, I just love how it's so different from one guild to the next, right? Viva la différence. So this is a very traditional classic piece, and this is a remake of an antique piece. So there's a few things going on here that make it so strong, so pleasing to look at. You know, it punches you kind of in the heart, a piece like this, because as rug hookers, we know that this looks like an early piece, a 19th century hooked piece, something that someone would have drawn with a piece of charcoal right onto the potato sack or whatever they had gotten a hold of. And all of that charm, all of that history is built in. It's very meaningful for us. And to see new pieces done, they are hat tips. They are like, reprised versions of beautiful old classics. And I'm very happy that these early designs don't fall by the wayside. I'm not sure about this one. Like I said, I'll stretch the tag and everything, but certainly the irregular shape of it is very typical of a 19th century rug. The shape is irregular because the person literally drew it with a piece of charcoal from the fire, and the wavy is not perfect, and it can't be perfect, right? And that the beauty is in the imperfection of it. But these early ones typically had very little going on design-wise. Usually an inner border, and that's what you're seeing with that wavy line. Usually corner, the border is anchored with four corners that are either all four the same or the diagonals match. And usually, not always, sometimes there's no center motif, but often there is, right? Often there is. Sometimes there's like a dog, sometimes there's a flower, sometimes there's nothing. Sometimes there's a house. In this case, it's a bit of the inner motif looks more contemporary to me. Looks like a bit of a snowflake, like a flower snowflake. Looks like a quilt pattern, like a quilt applique pattern. So the center motif looks more contemporary to me, but certainly the framework of it, when we were saying like your project for the weekend, draw the border, draw the scroll border, works the same for this piece, right? Works exactly the same for this piece. So what's going on with all those sort of the striation, the color variation, right? All the lights and then the darks. Well, this maker is making the piece look older. They're making it look like it was all, for example, black at one point. But we know with these antique rugs that the black fades, and it fades to olive, and it fades to like purpley colors, and it fades to sometimes weird red shades, but it fades, right? Browns and olive browns are the most common colors for black to fade to. And that's what's chosen here, right? This maker is doing a lot with black to give you the impression that it was a black rug, but then they are purposely hooking colors that are lighter to make it look like it is very time worn. And those colors are not necessarily affected by the sun as much as they're just affected by the loss of dye. Chemical dyes will poop out in the end, right? In the end, they will. But while they do, they have this weird kind of beauty that's the same as something turning to kind of patina, right? Those in-between colors and the loss of colors are so interesting for us as rug hookers to look at. I have to say, it's also very difficult to create an effect like this where you're trying to make something look old. It's very difficult. You really have to study existing rugs, study the color patterns and how it's done, because it's not easy. it might look easy because it's a primitive piece, but it's not easy. Are the white border squiggles faux antiquing? Yeah, that's exactly what they are. They're faux antiquing. Just looking like there was a couple of squiggles here and there of a different material, and that material was not as color fast. So we get the color variation. It's a lot of fun to try, but it does take practice. And you will be fine doing this technique if you just keep like a photograph or two on your phone or print it out in front of you of an old rug that has really faded. If you do that, you're going to be fine with making those color jumps and giving it that look. Let's see if we can make this one a little bit bigger. And I'm going to flip it over so you might have a better... Oh, honey, you having bad dreams, honey? Oh, honey. Let me flip it over. Let's transform clockwise. There we go. Okay. You see? Do you see what I see? I see the year, but I more want Hooked by Pat Foster. Is that Pat Foster? This is another Spruce Ridge, and the pattern is called, is that Mimosa? No. Gosh, what does that say? Really beautiful. Oh, it probably says antique for the second one. Something antique. Beautiful piece. And you're seeing a nice close-up of the colors here, too. Lots of the green. These are very Spruce Ridge colors as well, like the sprucey green colors, right? Sort of juniper, the celeries, all of these oddball greens are very in keeping with the Spruce Ridge brand, right? That is sort of their line, is doing all these beautiful soft colors, but these oddball colors that are much more interesting than seeing pink head on, right? Carnation pink or whatever. Really unusual colors, always, with the Spruce Ridge rugs. I'm going to keep going. Cute Halloween piece here. See if you can check out the name on this one, too. This looks really clear. And the maker. Let's look at the pattern first, and then I'll stretch it a little bit bigger. Love this idea. This for me never gets old. Witch's shoes, a pumpkin. Sometimes there's a cat down by the witch's feet. The pumpkin's expression is everything with this. I have to say, the idea of feet with like a Halloween motif is something we've seen always, right? You've seen these on cards when you're growing up. You see them, this kind of motif. But what makes this one interesting and unusual, and I'm going to get to the hooking, but design-wise are a few things. The striped socks are a lot of fun. The curl of the shoe is a lot of fun. That's very Wizard of Oz, Wicked Witch of the West kind of a shoe style going on there. The pumpkin is very unusual for me with this. That long stump, the long skinny stump, very unusual. The shape of the pumpkin is very unusual because he's flat on the bottom, rounded on the top. I love the slash for the nose, right? And the very hollow eyes. It's a very spooky looking pumpkin. Very different face. He doesn't have a jolly face. He's not necessarily smiling. He's got a great primitive expression, and it's very unusual. I have never done a pumpkin with a slash nose like that, and that just a sort of vacant eyes, like the dead shark eyes, right? It's like the Jaws pumpkin. It's very, very neat. Hooking wise, there's been a lot of smart choices too. I think it's great seeing that patterned wool in the background creates a lot of static, creates a lot of noise and fuzziness. It seems right for a Halloween night, right? You can't really see anything in the background. All you can see, all you're allowed to see is the ground where the witch is standing, and she's got this pumpkin right down on the ground. Everything else is in a haze. It's shrouded in mystery. It is Halloween night. I love Halloween pieces. This one is really sweet. Let's see who. Okay. Oh, it's Susan Zwart again. I got you, my pretty, and the designer is Julie Thomas. Beautiful. Susan Zwart hooked it. The teacher is Claire DeRose, and the year is 2020. Is that 2020? Or 2010, maybe? Super pretty. Super pretty piece. All right, let's keep going. Oh gosh, we have a few more. Okay. There was an old crow sat upon a... What's wrong with me? Cod? Is it a cod? Sat upon a cod? There's an end of my song that's very odd. Oh, God, I really screwed that up, didn't I? It's very cute, very 2010. Thank you, Mom. Very cute, Hutchinson-esque. Not as busy as a Hutchinson rug, but certainly the font reminds me of a Hutchinson rug. And clod. Oh, sat upon a clod. There's an end of my song. That's very odd. Super cute. Thank you. Thank you so much for helping with that, Judy. Um, I love, and don't, because I couldn't read it doesn't mean it's not legible. It's perfectly legible. It's just unexpected word for me, but super cute. And it has tons of charm. Love the brown background on this. Very primitive colors. It's not for me a super primitive. It's got text. It's got a lot of other stuff going on. And I have to say, I love this crow. There's something about the body language of this crow on these tall, thin, sleek legs. The body, I mean, it's a very humanized looking crow to me. Really love the shape of its body. I love the light outlining around it. I love the white field that is irregular where the words are placed. I'm very happy that the words aren't like all matchy-matchy inside a rectangle. I think this is way more interesting. Goretti, oh, great to see you. Say hi to Mike. Thank you. I is not right. Um, one is not, or maybe the L. Maybe it would have been easier for me to read with the L having the little tail on it. But now I know it's Claude. It's like it can't be anything but Claude. And I think the text is supposed to be a little bit wonky and a little bit naive. I think the pattern must look like that, right? It must, because this is beautifully hooked. I think it's meant to be kind of silly and folky looking. Super cute. Let me see if we can see whose this is. Hang on while I do it. This is technically a primitive, but there's a lot of other stuff going on. That marble cake background is absolutely gorgeous. Oh no, it's a little bit out of focus in the background. Can anybody make that out? Do you think it's anyone we've seen before? It is such a charming rug. And I'm going to make it smaller one more time. Sorry, the label on that one is a bit hard to read. Hold on. I'm creating mayhem. Hang on. I just want to make it small one more time because I just wanted to say, along the lines, as we look at these rugs, we always talk a little bit about composition, because why not? Man, if that's the toilet flushing, someone's really having a problem upstairs, right? Here comes more water. It's like, to be honest, not to be rotten, but I can't imagine anyone's washing the dishes. So what is going on up there, Um, Talking tonight about looking at some of these rugs and these compositions in general, thinking about composition. Wow. The idea of just making a crow and saying to yourself, I'm going to trust myself that this text is going to really hold the rug, and it does, right? The first thing you want to do before you even study the crow is see what it says, right? And it's a little rhyme, and it's funny, and it's folky, and it's loose, and it's fun, and it's primitive. It ticks all of the boxes. But if you were to say to yourself, I'm going to make a composition with words and a crow, you'd probably freak yourself out, right? Funny Friday night sounds. I know, right? We're going to have to check this out because this really is crazy. Sorry about that. These are all things we're learning as I sit down here for the first time and try to run a show. Yeah, it's interesting because if someone said to me, do a rug with like a bird and the rest of it has to be text, I would be scared stiff. I would be thinking, oh, well, what could it possibly say? I don't think I can pull that off. I think I'm going to need some lamb's tongues, or I'm going to need a big border, or I'm going to need something else going on there. But you know what? This is proof that it can be done. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. All right, we're almost there. Sorry about that, everybody. The funny Friday sounds. I will eat my words if my husband is washing the dishes. Right. That is it is unlikely, but it's not impossible. We shall see. And if he is, obviously I'm very pleased. But we will have to talk about this for next week. Now, did you just fall off your seat? Are you still sitting up? This is a very different style. Remember what I said about this guild. Very, very different style. I'm going to try to stretch this one too because with all of them, I would love to be able to attribute them. This one is Cuckoo. Somebody said in the meeting yesterday, my friend Carolina, she used the expression banana pants. She said something was banana pants, and she meant like wild and crazy, right? And I said, banana pants. I'm just gonna put it out there. It sounds a little obscene, but getting away from that idea. This is banana pants. I mean, this is crazy. So what a beautiful idea. Doing this very ornate, very lush. Um, um, sort of Corinthian vibe to these leaves, right? It almost looks architectural, the background, right? We're seeing all this very Baroque vegetation, right? But it looks like it belongs on stonework. It's very formal and stiff. It overlaps. We've got a riotous green color palette going on in the background, black fields, right? And that's important because it gives it that tapestry look, right? My mom fell off her seat. I knew it. When you put black behind anything that is going to have this kind of subject, it could be kind of like a peaceable kingdom subject. It could be something that it reminds me of 100 tapestries I've seen like in France. And part of the reason for that is the black background, isn't it? Gail is in love with this too. This is an interesting piece, right? So I'm going to stretch it in just a minute. First, let's talk about we're going to talk about the different animals, right? Because there's 3 different animals here, at least. And that's part of the storytelling is that they're getting along, right? That's the sort of peaceable kingdom side to it. They all look like they are from, and they might be all from other tapestries at other times, right? They're very formal looking animals. They're semi-realistic. None of them are looking directly at us. And that I think is interesting. None of them are looking at each other. They don't have a relationship to us or each other. That's interesting. So that makes me think, is this an original design? Did someone kind of collage, here comes the water again, collage these animals together? Like say, here's a bunny from this, here's a lion from this, and there's a fox from that. Because it is interesting that there's 3 animals in close proximity to each other who are not acknowledging each other. That's part of the storytelling of this piece. They are kind of pinned into Jumanji. Great. William Morris-esque. Absolutely. Those scrolls, right? That's very William Morris. The scrolls are really holding the animals in place. Certainly holding the lion in place, right? Because he's the one that might be dangerous. He'd go for these other 2, right? But he's not. It's kind of holding him in place. He seems very docile. It's another beautiful storytelling piece. There's flowers coming up. Nothing is trampled. Everything looks very alive, very lush, very pristine. Ruth, you can't hear the water. Question is, how big is this rug? That I don't know. All I have is the pictures. If Patricia's on, maybe she remembers. But the tags don't say how big the rugs are. Sometimes they say who the teacher is, but it's basically just the pattern and the maker. That would be a good question because a lot would depend on the size of the rug, like the cut you were using, right? Would definitely depend. So the composition itself is very, I don't want to say it's whimsical. It's not exactly whimsical. It's more kind of it has a historic backbone to it. But there is an illustrative, like children's book quality about the characters. Like that could be the Velveteen Rabbit over on the right. Interesting. And there is something really interesting about the way that the greenery, whether it's the flowers or the stems of the flowers or the sort of trellising scroll work that looks a little bit more architectural. Oh, good, you ordered Paulette Hackman's book. That is a fantastic book. There is something about the way the green is overlapping and covering the animals, but they are quite alive, right? They are quite alive. It's a very interesting piece. And also notice that border. That small border that changes colors, so unexpected. To me, it looks like cut paper. It looks very fragile. I've never seen this border before. The fact that it changes colors is great because this is a very colorful piece, but it is very green heavy and very yellow heavy. And the nuances of these colors are able to travel out to the border because it's a colorful border. And it almost looks metallic, right? In some places, it might be that it's a patterned wool, but it almost looks a little metallic. There is something so brilliant about the borders because the color changes. It looks like cut paper that's kind of uneven, or it's pulling here, pulling there, and it's probably not. It's probably really formulaic, but at the same time, it gives it kind of an optical illusion. I'm going to stretch this out a little bit for us to see closer up. Let's see if we can see who the maker is, because we'd love to know more about this piece. Let me make it really big over here. Ooh, can you see that? So the pattern is by, oh, it's still too small for me. Oh, Patricia, it's very large. Nancy is the most amazing teacher. Okay, so it's hooked by Nancy. Oh, what's Nancy's last name? Nancy is the most amazing teacher and did mostly animals, and her hooked eyes are surreal. So she does mostly animals. So, Patricia, I have to ask you, I'm dying to know who Nancy is, because you know I'm looking for teachers for Tigger in 2027. We do have a lot of animal teachers because we have Liz Marino's Endangered Species Project. There's going to be 3 to 5 teachers who are coming to teach their respective patterns for that. But I would love to look at Nancy's work and see if maybe I'm always looking for teachers, right? I'm looking for teachers. And Aryan, it sounds like someone has flushed the toilet 300 times. Water is coming down this pipe like someone's having a real bathroom problem.
I've got the washing machine on.
Let's not do that again. It's the washing machine. I'm glad to know that no one is having that kind of a problem. It looks like 6 posts passed. Oh, wait a minute. Very large. 6 posts passed. Did I miss something? I did. Patricia, I am so sorry. You are being so good, and I don't know how I'm missing so much. Patricia said this is Forrest Morris. Forrest Morris. Nice. Hooked by Nancy McLennan, my teacher. I introduced her to you when you were... Okay, so I've met her. I don't think I clocked that she was a teacher, and now I have to investigate her again, because she's also in this part of the country. So I'm sure I would know. I'm sure I would know her by sight. I never forget a face. I can't forget names, but I never forget a face. So I'm gonna have to chase her. You know what, Patricia? Let me just take a picture of that comment. So here we go. Wait a minute. Oh, it's me. Nope, we don't want that. We want this. I'm gonna see, and I might chase her a little bit. She didn't remember the designer, Nancy McLennan, but she is, okay, she's 90 years old and retired. Got it. Okay. Because Tigger is still 2 years away, and I'm sure she's going to be going strong, but she probably doesn't want to teach at Tigger. Man, what a piece. Let's look at, Patricia, thank you for that info. Let's look at it one more time. You know, I'm going to, let me move around. Good Lord. And I see the date there, 2000. And I see NM for Nancy M. Nancy McLennan. Wow. Oh, there's a little bit of yellow in the flowers around the bunny. Isn't that nice, too? You know, I got to say, I love me a cool green. There's something about cool green colors that are just, I don't know what it is. It's like they're magical. When I think about fairy houses and colors in fairy villages and stuff, they're always cool greens and blue greens, aren't they? Just magical. God, this pattern is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Oh, so that's the lion's tail that's coming through there. Was so detailed, Ruth says. I wondered how big it was. Apparently it's very dang big, isn't it? Let me make it small one more time, because we are just loving. This is just an exception. They're all beautiful pieces, obviously, but this piece has a lot going on, right? Primitive pieces are magical and special for the things that make them, you know, intrinsically beautiful. This is a very different piece. Nothing is good, better, or best, right? That's not, we don't talk in that language. We just say this is a very different piece and a very different style, and there's a lot to lock into here. It's hard to lock in because there's so much that you want to take. Ruth says, makes me think of Aslan in the Chronicles of Narnia. You know, now that you said that, it does me too. That gentleness of the face, right? Before the poor thing gets shaved. What a beautiful piece. My God. Patricia, will you tell the ladies at your guild that we're not done yet, that we have enjoyed looking at these pieces so much. And Patricia, I'm so sorry that I couldn't make it up there. It was just, it is a long ride, and I don't mind a long ride, but I need like a couple weeks to plan out, because with life and with the kids and with everything, I really have to cover my bases before I'm really gone for like a full blackout of a day or an overnight. But next time you do something, will you let me know? Because I would love to make my way up there, and maybe some of us, could plan to make our way up there and look at some of these pieces. I would love to I would love to come back, and I would love to go to the next show. All right, let's look. I think we have a couple more pieces now. This is, again, a very different piece. This has a very Native American feel to it, but it also has a very Tiffany stained glass feel to it, doesn't it? It could go either way. It's got one foot in the Navajo camp and the other foot in the Tiffany's camp. You see what I mean? It's got both going on. What an unusual piece. I'll enlarge this one too. But let's look at some things about this piece first. The shape is very thoughtful because it does feel like stained glass, right? Whether it's Tiffany or Navajo, it feels like stained glass. And it has a window shape, right? You could see this panel going in somewhere. It looks like a stained glass window. It's framed with kind of a barnwood frame, but a heavy frame. It still maintains that window look. Color-wise, the colors are what bring me to Navajo a little bit, because we've got the natural colors, the sort of oatmeal-y gray, and then the black. And then we've got colors that are natural dye colors. The blue, which could be the indigo, the red, which could be one of many flowers or bugs, and the yellow, which could be most flowers, right? Oh, Patricia, I would love to come back. Let them know I would love to come back. I would probably even take the family and just leave them at the hotel and come and hang out. Another beautiful piece. And this also has the Macintosh look, right? The angular shapes, the lines running through, the Art Deco feel to it, right? Strong Art Deco feel to it. Let me make this a little bit larger so we can see if we can see the tag. And Patricia, if you remember, I promise I'm looking. I love how the barnwood frame is a very similar color to that background. This is such a great sort of stylized, very graphic piece. It could, let's see if the name gives us a clue. It could be from several different cultures. It could be from several different time periods. Pattern. Looks like the designer is Emma, maybe Weber. Pat, this is you. Pat, this is you. 2004. Oh, okay. Well, this one's going to be easy. Okay, let's go smaller again. Now, Pat, do you want to walk us through your choices, color choices, inspiration, and all of that? Are these natural dye colors, or does it just happen that they are colors that could be natural dye colors? Such a different piece. I love to see this with rug hooking. I love to see pieces that are just completely different. Style-wise, shape-wise, design-wise, color-wise. This is an awesome frame, too. And you know what it makes me think of? It makes me think, does TJ Maxx right now have any, like, Mira frames, Because it is the kind of dimension of a Mira. And some of those stores, frames like this, something like this dimension-wise, I think would be, it might not be as big as a mirror, but you know what I mean. If you were making a big piece, you could pop out the mirror and have a nice frame like this for really good amount of money. I love it. It does look like a stained glass window, but the colors bring me to other places. So this piece is a journey for sure, and it is beautifully hooked. I just love little touches how from the top to the bottom it's quite different. There's that little blue stripey at the top, and at the bottom there's two black cutaway triangles. So it frames the picture differently. When I look at it quickly, it also makes me think, is it like a vessel? It can't be, because it's too compartmentalized. But it's such an unusual shape. There's such unusual lines. And I got to say it, going along the lines of the conversation we've been having tonight, if you were to sit down and say to yourself, I'm doing it. I'm going to draw something that is like a yard long, like a long stretched out shape. I'm going to draw something that shape, and I'm going to try to channel in my mind, because you could fold it in half, right? It's going to be symmetrical. You can only have to draw half of it. If you fold it in half, draw a stained glass piece, half of it. Make it wacky. Take your time, make it wacky, and don't put too many lines in all at once. And then make sure you can see through it, or hold it up to the screen door or window and trace it through to the other side and just see what you got for symmetry. See what you've got. It's so interesting looking at pieces that are stained glass because they're geometrics, they're abstracts, right? You could, if you do it stylized, you could even create something that looks like a person. This almost looks like a person, right? If the headdress was different, I would start thinking like, ooh, is it a person? Is it a crown? Is it a really? There's so many things that you can see in a design like this. This is another great exercise to just try, right? All right, I'm going to go. I think we've got 2 more slides. And as usual, I'm late. I'm sorry about that. Oh, come on. Oh, gosh. Buttons just left, but he says, oh, that would be my friend. That would be my... Actually, nobody is Buttons' friend. Buttons doesn't make friends. But this looks like a cutie who would make friends. And I don't... The tag is cut off on this one. So maybe Patricia chimes in and lets us know. But regardless, oh, come on. What a great pet portrait this is. I love the way, I love dogs with triangle ears. It makes me wonder what kind of toy this dog is playing with. This must be, because at first I thought it was a tennis ball. I know. It looks a little like Buttons. More like a schnauzer, I think. Look at the little dark eyes, the little marble eyes, the little lips, right? The little rubber lips. So cute. Well, yeah, I thought this was a tennis ball, and then I thought, no, this is a different kind of toy. We don't have this toy yet. Oh my God, that reminds me. I just have to say, I know we're late. We ordered some, Buttons doesn't play with balls because he's tiny and it won't fit in his mouth. So I ordered, I should have known, I should have known that these existed. I ordered a set of tiny little tennis balls, but they're much smaller, but they're still like tennis balls, but they're tiny. Fits right in his little mouth like it was made for him. He, since last night when they arrived, they came, in the mailbox from Amazon, has turned into a ball dog. He has, Mom, wait till you see. He walks around with that thing in his mouth, and you go anywhere near him, and he like runs and hides because he's afraid you're going to take the ball away from him. And then it squeaks too, and he's trying to rip the hair off the ball, the little tennis balls. God, it is so funny to watch him playing with it because he will like be biting it, and then he shoots it out of his mouth by accident, and then he chases it. I mean, it was great last night because he normally drives me crazy because he wants me to chase him around the house. That's exactly what I want to do with my last bit of energy before bedtime, but I end up doing it like every night because he barks and drives me crazy. He wants to play. Not that I don't want to play with him, but this ball did the job for me last night, and there's a chance this ball could do the job for me tonight too. It's really great to have a dog who loves a ball. Oh my God, but this little sweetheart, my God, what a little sweetie. A Kong. Okay, I feel like I've heard that word, a Kong toy. See, you all know this toy. I'll have to see if they make ones for Buttons. This dog's probably a little bit bigger than Buttons. What a cutie. You know what's great about this piece? Besides the dog being perfect, right? Perfect. The expression on the face, it is hard to get expression. I think it's harder to get expression into animals' faces than people's faces. The parts that need to be busy are perfect, right? The sort of shadow, a little bit of shadow, a little bit of striping to show you where the shadow and the different color, dark, light hair falls, but also where it's bright on the paws, on the back, right? You're getting nice on the top of the head. Oh, guess who's back? Okay, hang on. Come on, you come back to Mama. Come here. Don't go near that. That's sharp. Come here. He's standing near the frame. Come here, baby. The dog is hooked perfectly, and he's got the little almond eyes. Wait a minute, I have to do it. He's got the little almond eyes. Hey, Buttons. Little marbles, right? Sweet little marbles. And wait a minute. The dog is kind of what's called foreshortened in art. Enrichment toys on Amazon. Well, maybe we need that. Oh, part Yorkie, part pit bull. Could be a mix, right? Could definitely be a mix. Oh, Buttons. You can't help but fall in love. No, I know. Oh my God. So, he's so cute right now. This dog is foreshortened, and what that means is you're not seeing the whole body. And you know what's so interesting about, and it's perfectly done, right? You can get a photo, you can get the pose, take a photo, get the pose. This piece reminds us that you don't have to put all of the information into the background. And sometimes you shouldn't. Sometimes you shouldn't. Being too literal in the background often creates a very busy composition, and it takes away from what you really want the focal point to be. The dog's face, the dog's personality, the dog with his toy. You see the little ears lifted. Will you play with me, right? Right, he's interested and interacting. And using just brown in the background, it's not confusing to look at, right? Where's the rest of his body? You're not going, oh, does he only have half a body? You're not doing that because your eye can tell it's well done. Your eye can tell that he's leaning over something, and it works, right? He's either across the ground or he's leaning slightly over a pillow or something like that. Perfect. We don't need all of the information. We just want to focus on that little face, right? And isn't it great? Because the dog is like natural dog colors, right? That was brilliant, right? That was my brilliant remark of the day. The dog is natural dog colors. And isn't it a funny choice that in the background, okay, I have to show you. Are you serious? He's just, it's just too much. In the background, it's all chocolate brown. Let's come back over here. It's all chocolate brown. And maybe you would think to yourself, well, I wouldn't do brown in the background because there's a lot of brown in the dog. Guess what? There's not warm brown in the dog. That background color looks to me, if I was going to make that color, I would say this looks like the Dharma color called truffle brown. They have a chocolate brown. They have a truffle brown. I know, making you hungry probably. But these rich, warm browns have a lot of red and orange in them. And what a great natural, still looks very natural contrast. And the reds in that brown, right, it's very red rich, the background color, is really playing against that green Kong. Absolutely beautiful, right? Another gorgeous piece. You see what I mean about this guild? This guild is like, this is one of these magic guilds. This is the last image I have for you tonight. Another beauty. And you know what? This speaks to the beginning of the show when we were talking about the felted pieces that we saw. We saw some felted flower pieces that were not dissimilar in design from this. And remember we were saying like, ooh, the first image I think we saw was popped into a frame like this. Remember? So going full circle with this conversation with smaller pieces, particularly so many ways to finish your piece. This is so great inside a mat like this, right? Really holds your attention. And what it's saying to the person who's viewing it is, I am a piece of fine art. I am a piece of fiber art, and fiber art is fine art, right? Make no mistake. I love to refer to hooking as a craft, and it is a craft, but it's still, in my mind, but it still should be taken as seriously as any of the fine, classical fine arts. What we do is hard, and it is hard to get it right. This is such a pretty piece. Let me stretch this out a little bit. I'll pick you up. I can see the whites of Button's eyes. He's looking at me from the corner of his eye and making these hoarse whimpers because my hand isn't touching him. Absolutely beautiful. This doesn't look like a particularly fine cut either. I would guess that this was like maybe a 6 or a 7. So beautiful. It's got a very impressionist style to it, right? It's not primitive. It's graphic, but there are some color substitutions, and it's very color dependent. It's a wider cut, right? So you can see it. You can see the strips very, very well. You can see the color changes. There's changes in the sky, there's changes in the greenery, the stem, the leaves, there's changes in the flowers. Something like this you really have to get right because as you can imagine, when you are using a lot of colors in every part of it, the petals, the stems, the background, the ground, it can go wrong, right? You really have to pay attention to what you're doing. And if you're working from a source, come here, honey. If you're working from a source like a photograph, you really want to keep looking at the photograph because this looks like it. Oh, that's a simple design. It's a flower. Guess what? It's not a simple design the way that it's hooked. It's a very complicated design the way that it's hooked. This is very masterful design. And another beautiful piece. Let me see if I can see if there. Oh, here we go. Can you read the tag on that? Let's see. Pattern. Daisies. Sharon Smith. Oh, Sharon Smith. Okay, we talked about her earlier. And Allison Purdy. 2025. Fantastic. Oh, Kirsten, good to see you. Gorgeous. Yes, that is definitely art. That is definitely art. Okay, we're going to come to you one more time. Here we are. There we go. Hey, what a mixed bag tonight, right? I love this on Fridays. It was really important to me that we finished looking at the sort of mixed media fiber art stuff. And it was really important to me that we wrapped it up with the Patricia's images from the Pearl McGowan show because it all comes full circle. We're having, weirdly, some of the same conversations about the fiber art stuff that was quilted as we were the rug hooked stuff at the end, right? Now, isn't that interesting? And doesn't that say everything? Doesn't that say it all? You know, it's all the same. He's sitting on my lap, and there's not much. There's not much because I got my legs crossed. So Buttons, are we get? Oh Jesus, Mom. Oh, where I go? There we go. We're gonna say good night because we have a busy weekend coming up. Busy, busy. I think right until the holidays, but we'll think of a great show to do for you on Monday. I look forward to that. And now we know where that water sound was coming from, so we won't repeat that. Buttons with the measuring tape tongue. That is so funny. My sister has remarked on that, saying, "God, like he's the cutest dog, but his tongue is so gross. It's so long. It is measuring." And he'll be like sitting with me. He's having a hard time getting comfortable. He'll be sitting with me, and I think there's no way his tongue is going to reach my eye. And it's like, his tongue just touched my eye. It happens all the time. I think, no way, no way. My face is on the pillow, and I'm 90% asleep, and I'm thinking, no. And yeah, no, he'll get me like in the ear, in the nose, on the eye. You should see the way he's looking at me right now. He's like, Mama, just don't talk about that because I a good boy. And his tongue is always sticking. His tongue is always sticking out a little bit like that. Oh, Kanga, we are just logging off. Me and Buttons are just logging off, but we had a really fun show. I know Fridays are hard, right? It was great fun, and I've learned a lot of new funny expressions like measuring tape tongue. I love that. So it's great being together tonight. My brain is just swirling with projects and new techniques. And what do you think? What are we going to do in 2026? Yes, 2026. It got me thinking about it with like the sampler blocks of the block of the month thing. Thinking what kind of projects could we do? I know we're going to do the exchange, right? I haven't forgotten about that. We're going to do the exchange where we exchange supplies with each other, like in a Ziploc bag. And Barbara called that the sandwich bag exchange or something like that. We're going to do that for sure. But yeah, I want to think about some themes for 2026. I know we're probably having 3 books and 4 magazines come out in 2026 just because of the backlog, right? From me doing the move and doing solder and all of that stuff. But be thinking about that. If you've got some great ideas, make sure that you send me a message. We are going to survive. That'll be enough, right? That'll be enough. If I can come up with some great ideas for some projects that we can work on together, I want to get back to the Caswell carpet with a vengeance. In fact, somebody ordered some squares. 2 people did. So I'm going to get those out. Let me know if you have some great ideas outside of Magpie, outside of book projects, because I would love to hear your great ideas. And I would be on board with just about anything. I would love to do some fun and different stuff in 2026. I'm on board with whatever you ask for. So be thinking about that. He's still licking. Be thinking, yeah, he just licks and licks and licks. It drives me crazy. He licks like fabric and stuff. Anyway, have a great weekend. I hope you get up to some fun stuff. I hope maybe you sit down and do a little time for designing just to get your brain working in a different direction, right? Exercise your brain in a different direction. Check out my posts on Monday's show. Oh, okay. From the past Monday? Oh, definitely. We're going to survive. I love that. All right. Hey, happy weekend, everybody. Enjoy. Stay warm. And I'll think about what we'll probably look at Karen Miller's other book because that's another one that Rug Cooking Magazine gave me. Maybe we'll do that on Monday, unless something comes up between now and then that makes me think, oh, that's what we're doing. We'll do something fun regardless. So, oh, thanks, Gail. Have a great day. I'm about to go to sleep. You just woke up. You got the whole day in front of you. Make it great. It's only the one, right? It's only that. You only get that one. That's always what people say. You only get that one day, one time. And I think of all of the days I waste, and I sit in parking lots and I wait for people to come out, and I sit in traffic and I can't think of it like that. It's still that one day, and you got to at least keep your brain going and your energy going and be positive, right? What else? What else is there? I'll see you all at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard. Let me just check. I feel like that brought something up in my head when I just said that. No, not until evening. We're good. I will see you 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time